On today's special episode of Homeworthy, we're touring some of our favorite gut renovations, where vision and grit turned houses into extraordinary homes. First, we're traveling to Bedford, New York, where an interior designer and author transformed her colonial space in just 6 months, layering it with inviting nooks, striking patterns, and rich textures. Next, we're heading to the English countryside, where a content creator marries Nordic simplicity with modern playfulness in her Georgian retreat. Then, we'll travel to Austin, Texas, where an interior designer turned a Victorian treasure from Facebook Marketplace into a playful haven with eclectic charm. And finally, we head over to Southern California, where a design duo's hands-on renovation creates a serene, neutral-toned bungalow that embraces you with comfort. This summer, spend the hottest months of the year in style with Homeworthy as we visit the most extraordinary homes around the world. From the sun-soaked shores of the Hamptons to the classic beachfronts of Nantucket to the vibrant courtyards of Morocco, be sure to subscribe to Homeworthy's summer series to make every day feel like a vacation. You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hi, Homeworthy. I'm Brittany. Welcome to my home here in New York. Come on in.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hi, I'm Brittany Bromley. I'm an interior designer, and welcome to my home here in Bedford, New York. When I first saw this home, it was 2009, and it had a lot of deferred maintenance. Unfortunately, the previous owners had lived here for 40 years, and I think as people are apt to do, you sort of stop seeing the issues. And so there were a lot of things that were necessary to both bring it up to date, but also to sort of make it something that was aesthetically pleasing. So we did about 6 months of renovations, a lot of which we did ourselves, which was lots of fun and very illuminating as to what is required to make something like this truly shine. And I looked at it as a 30-year project. I wasn't daunted by the amount of deferred maintenance, but certainly if I were to see it now as opposed to 15 years ago, I might have had a little bit less energy to put towards it. So this home dates back to 1790, which is just about 2 years after the burning of Bedford, New York. So it was one of the few structures in town that actually survived. And as a result of that, it is a home, like most old homes, that was added on to as the requirements of the people occupying it changed. So it started as a very classic center hall colonial, 2 up and 2 down. And we actually have some really amazing character details from that era, one of which would have been their primary source of sort of cooking fire, which is the massive dining fireplace area, which still has a very cool old, what you would have used to put like a soup tureen on and off of the fire. But the house, because it had so many different iterations, there's not a single straight line in sight. The entire space, I mean, my wallpaper guy wants to kill me. There's a 4.5-inch difference between one side of the kitchen and the other. And, you know, if you dropped a marble, you'd never find it again. So here we are in the living room, and this space, believe it or not, was probably in the best condition of any room in the home. So one of the challenges was, because it wasn't in the same sort of sense of deterioration as some of the others, was to reimagine it in a way that made sense for us. So one of the things about this room that I really loved is that it has these incredible old, very wide plank wood floors. And we have that in several of the rooms of this home on this first floor. But this room to me felt something about how large it was and the expanse of it. These floors almost felt like they needed to be considered separately. And so the design concept for this room started to come about as a result of figuring out what I wanted these floors to feel like. My amazing, incredible decorative painter, Mary Mead Evans, and she did a Parquet de Versailles. We worked very closely to figure out what sort of tone this floor would be, and it is the only room in our home that has this light wash on it. And I wanted it to feel, in a sense, almost Parisian. And so not only was the pattern selected for that reason, but also then from there, because every decision narrows your next decision when it comes to design, that was also how I decided to do the boiserie on the walls. So the walls in this room are done with applique wood molding in a boiserie finish. And then this paint color was also done as a decorative paint color. And anyone that's ever worked with me as a painter knows that I like to see about 95 options before I settle on that which is perfect, and this was no different. So God bless Mary for sticking with me on this, because this sort of pale peachy color to me is one of the most flattering colors in the world, and it feels both light and bright and somehow modern. And because every decision then narrows the next, I felt that the upholstery in this room needed to be strong enough that it could stand up to the quietness of the walls. So I started in this area with the concept of having a dark sofa. And I chose a very traditional George Smith sofa. And to me, they're the most beautiful sort of old-fashioned, wonderful, traditional, and it's covered in a really amazing chocolate brown mohair, which is really tactile and really comfortable, and also gives it the interest of when things are sort of moved around on something like mohair, it gives it a sheen, and that's a really interesting thing to me. The hero fabric in this room, which is what we call sort of the multicolor fabric that brings everything else in the space together, is this gorgeous silk from Benison. Benison is one of my most favorite fabric houses. They have the most incredible things. And to me, this is an incredible fabric. Just disturb Banksy here to show you. Because it's almost painterly in the way that it is a hand done set of florals. And because it has all of these colors in it, and yet it has a very quiet oyster silk background, it allows us to sort of use all of those colors throughout the room. So this is the main area. And then over here, we have my collection, which is what we call when we're an interior designer and we can't stop shopping, of all of the things that I really love. And so to me, that means things like tortoiseshell boxes, opaline glass, and lots of sort of what we refer to in the business as objet, which means that if I see it and I want it, I get to add it to the collection. And that's very special to me. And the idea in a room like this, where everything is very pale, to me, of using something dark like this table, it's a very grounding effect. And you'll see throughout this space that I've used black in that way to pull sort of the lightness of some of these other things back to the ground and ground them. So you'll see like these beautiful lampshades all have little bits of black. And then our favorite chair, this is one of my most favorite things in the whole house, is covered in this gorgeous quadrille fabric. And it just makes me happy every time I see it. And this is the vista that I see when I walk by this room, is this chair from the hallway. So it makes me very happy. These are antique French bergère. And to me, there's really never not a good case to be made for animal print. And this animal print, because there are many, happened to work perfectly with this sort of pearl oyster color of the walls and this deep chocolate brown. And again, because it's a velvet, it does have the ability to change a little bit in sheen. And that to me makes it more interesting, because use and patina and things like that are always things to which I gravitate. I also have a real fondness for, and therefore quite a collection of antique oil paintings. And this room is a room that sort of displays my fondness for these things. So throughout the space, you'll see these beautiful oil paintings that I've been collecting for quite some time. This mantelpiece was actually quite controversial, believe it or not. When I bought this home, this is the mantel that was in place. And there was a lot of discussion around, because it is a Central Hall Colonial dating back to 1790, whether this particular wood piece and this detailing would have been used in that era. And the answer is no. But to me, what's really lovely about having a home that has had multiple iterations and has expanded throughout history is the idea that that historical aspect to it is layers that are added on top of it. So my goal when we restored this home wasn't to bring it back to feeling as though it were 1790. It was to display the fact that this is a home that has stood the test of time. And then to further play with sort of proportion and scale, I found another wonderful old oil painting, and this one happens to be of a little girl. I have two little girls, and so we always say that this is my girl with flowers. So both of my girls really love this. One of the things we get to do a lot here in Bedford is take walks in the preserve. And so this is actually an old mercury glass vase, and all of these feathers are feathers that I've found throughout the course of my time here in Bedford. So they're a little bit of a trophy, and I love them. And then I'm also always very drawn to natural textures like horn and this sort of natural color variation associated with that. So this pair of horns is an antique set that I bought many, many years ago. And I have to be honest, they have a beautiful silver base, which requires regular polishing if you're someone who doesn't like patina. I happen to love patina, and therefore they only get done every once in a while, because I like the idea that they don't feel terribly new and that they are something that is a living finish. This dog statue actually belonged to my grandmother Gigi, who had really beautiful homes and really incredible style, and probably genetically gave me more information in that regard than I'm even aware of. But this was something that belonged to her, and she passed away when I was in my early 20s, and this little guy has been with me from every home I've ever had since then, and because of that will always have sort of a pride of place wherever I am. One of the things about a home to me that is important is that it not feel too precious and that it not feel too done, because the concept behind what I would like to do and what I do as it relates to just having published a book titled this is that there is such a thing as relaxed elegance. And so even though I have lampshades in this room that are 100% silk and hand pin tucked and have all of this detail, I also love the juxtaposition between something like a hand-blocked batik. And so the ability for me to wave something like that into this space and ground it with this inlaid black and cream lamp, to me makes everything in the room more interesting. On this wall, we have another thing to which I gravitate and therefore have a nice collection, and that is reverse painted églomese. Églomese is an incredible mirror technique where you reverse paint a mirror, and so you get not only this gorgeous thing that they've created, but you also get where they have removed the back of that mirror and where it is something where it's still solid. So it gives the entire piece of art this really interesting, again, patina, to which I obviously gravitate. This little corner of the space in our living room, I will say, was a design challenge. And I like to say that there are no challenges. It's more about opportunity. And I wanted it to function in a way that would allow, when I was entertaining, for people to sort of break away from the main seating area and have sort of what we would refer to as a tete-a-tete, which means like a little private conversation in a space where the entire group is not gathered, but without leaving the room. So this is a custom corner piece, which I had upholstered in this beautiful chocolate brown and white Schumacher silk. And then I did a bullion fringe, and These pillows obviously are the hero fabric in our room, which is the venison, and they have this incredible decor de Paris trim on them, and it is, we call it the caterpillar in our office because we love it so much. Comes in many wonderful colors, but it's very tactile, and I love that about it. Another thing that was important to me about this space in general here in the living room, but also most of my home, is that we don't have a lot of overhead light. This room doesn't have any for the most part. And so having various sources of light at different heights is very important to the overall ambiance. And so instead of having to worry about having another set of side tables here to serve this, having these floor lamps with the green silk shades eliminated that problem and gave us the ability to have this function as a space that was lit appropriately. So one of the opportunities about this space is that because this home had been added onto over time, what had started out as a much larger living room, which was entirely rectangular in nature and expanded out like this, ended up being carved up by a previous owner so that we could accommodate some modern amenities, for which I'm grateful, like washer dryer. But it meant that this room was no longer functioning in the same space. And so these two rooms are separate rooms in the sense that they have different functions in our lives, but they are adjoining, and putting a door into either would have changed sort of the flow. And so my solution to that was to use our incredible hero fabric from venison and create a very sort of dramatic doorway using this drape fabric. But one of the things that was important to me is that these two spaces have different color palettes, but also be able to always sort of relate to one another because they are open. And so what you'll see when we move into this room is that we chose to do this side of the curtain in this gorgeous silk in the venison, and then we chose to do the reverse side in this green gingham, so that both, when seen from the opposite room, make sense. So now we're in the adjoining space to the formal living room, and this is by far sort of one of the more interesting parts of our home as it relates to color scheme. I think you probably know by now that I'm not afraid of color, and this room demonstrates that aptly. The first thing that I chose for this space is this marbleized wallpaper from Lee Joffa. It is such an interesting combination of colors that you don't always see together. And I've always loved marbleized fabrics and papers and books because it creates such a beautiful organic movement to it. This is not a large room, and as you can see, a lot of this room is doors and windows. And so the ability to have this paper sort of hold its own against all of that negative space was very important. Because this has such an interesting mix of colors, it allowed me to sort of go nuts in the Crayola box as it relates to what we did in this space. So the first thing I did was to choose this really dark green, but what you'll note about this color green, which it took me again several tries to figure out in the sample department, is that it has a lot of yellow in it and very little blue. And because of that, it doesn't read as a Kelly. It's much more olive, or as the case may be, since this is the name, more of a bonsai. And it gives us a little bit warmer, richer feeling than something that's more traditionally Kelly green might do. From there, I layered in my most favorite color, other than verdigris. Don't ask my poor children who had to learn how to spell that for all their kindergarten reviews. They all know it by heart now, though, is this incredible Pierre Frey saffron velvet. And it was really important to me, because this room is often viewed from the formal living room, that this space be framed out in a way where these curtains were doing a lot of work in here. And this bright color and this sort of intense color saturation is really important as far as how this room functions. Next up on the hit parade is our incredible Lee Joffa fabric. So this sofa is the perfect size, and this is a custom piece that I had designed. And I wanted this to be a space where we could sort of retire after dinner, have drinks. When a few people have gone home and the party gets a little bit smaller and maybe a little bit more interesting, it lets everybody sort of sit in this more intimate space. So I wanted to be able to enjoy it with my children, but I also wanted to be able to hang out with friends in here. So this space was conceived with that in mind. And one of the things that I do quite often, which I think is very functional and therefore is one of the things that we probably do most for other people, is we created an ottoman that's firm enough for us to put a drink down on, but soft enough for us to put our feet up on. And because this is a tight space, you sort of have to think about the functionality of the space in addition to the aesthetic. And so what we often do is create a custom trivet tray, as we've done here, so that when we have lots of people in here and some people have their feet up, we've got some place we can put a drink down, and we've got some additional sort of space for entertaining purposes. One of the other things for which I'm well known and therefore have profligate amounts in my home is pattern lampshades. This particular set really spoke to me because not only does it have this very specific green, but it is also pulling in a bit of the saffron color. And I love that about it. What you'll notice here is one of many in my home. Have a real love for needlepoint pillows. This one happens to illustrate my point perfectly, which is too much of a good thing is wonderful. So that is something that is always sitting there and frankly quite true. In addition to that, one of the things that I like to do when I have a space that has a lot of negative space, which is what happens when you have a large window, is I like to hang something either on top of it or adjacent to it so that it gives you sort of a frame of reference for the space itself. In this particular room, I've chosen one of my favorite things. This is the Papier-mâché mirror by Casa Gusto. And I think what is so wonderful about it, besides this great color and the detail and the fact that it's 3D, is that it gives you a frame of reference in the negative space around this window. And so that makes it probably a lot more interesting than it would be if it were on something that was solid. As I explained, this room functions as an addendum to the formal living room. And because of that, we did choose some of the colors so that they would be repetitious. But maybe the most important thing that I did to combine these two spaces is to use the same color in high gloss lacquer on this ceiling as I did on the walls in the main room. So those two sorts of senses of connection, besides this beautiful open entryway with these curtains, I think make this room feel separate from, but also related to, its neighbor. So here we are in the main event, which is the center hall of the Center Hall Colonial here in our home in Bedford. And I would say one of the things about this space that to me was very important is the idea that because the entertaining rooms are off of this, that this room felt sort of traditionally formal in the sense that I wanted you to know that you'd arrived. And so one of the ways that we accomplished that was by having this floor painted out in a very traditional checkerboard. This is something that, would have been done in the day, often in a material like marble, so that you had this sort of elevated feel. In our case, we have really wonderful old wood floors, and so for us it was natural for it to stay this chocolate brown and then to weave in this sort of creamy white that didn't feel too cold. One of the other things I did in this space, because it is very much a connector, but I also want that sense of arrival, is that I chose to do this really terrific Schumacher wallpaper, which has a little bit of reflectivity to it, which to me is very important because, again, this is one of the few overhead lights in my home. So most of the time when you're seeing these wall treatments, you're relying on light at a certain level to sort of carry you through. And this gives a really nice reflectivity with the sconces. This is one of my most favorite pieces ever. It is an antique French baking cabinet, and in its day, it would have been used to sort of show like amazing fresh pastries and croissants and breads and things which had just been baked that day. In my case, it serves both a utilitarian function and also a decorative function. And that is that we keep a lot of our silver in here because I always just think it's more interesting to have a little bit of glint and interest. This holds not only things which are recently acquired and beautiful, but also things which have real sentimental value. And some of the things that we like to display here that I happen to have just picked up here are my baby cup from when I was younger, which fittingly reads The Big Event, my silver rattle, and the first silver dollar that I got when I lost my front teeth. So barely any time has passed since then. One of the other things about this space is that this door, which is a traditional center hall colonial door, is actually one single piece of woodwork. So this entire casing, the windows around it, everything about this would have to be taken out or put back in one single piece, which just simply isn't done anymore. And so I used a heat gun to bring this door back from whence it had come, which was about 9 layers of paint, so that we could get to some of the beautiful molding and woodwork and architectural detail, which would have been more appropriate to its heritage. One of the other things I love about this little space, tiny and mighty though it may be, is the way that it connects the more formal spaces in my house. And so having things that sort of play with the idea of being relaxed and formal at the same time is always interesting to me. So I've chosen a really beautiful olive wood carved chair, which again I love because of the interest in the negative and positive space. I've covered it in a pretty precious material. Just ask my children, who are not allowed to put wet umbrellas down on it. But then we've sort of played with the idea of it being a much more relaxed space by having these really beautiful papier-mâché from Casa Gusto, which have this almost sculptural feeling to them and a much more natural sort of rustic feeling. Additionally, this is the center hall of our home, and so this staircase is a main thoroughfare. And so in addition to being something which is required to be picturesque, it also has to take a real beating. And so having a natural texture on these stairs like this jute is very important to me, and I think it keeps it from feeling too precious. One thing that I detail in my book, which I think I'm probably very well known for, at least by my team, is that when I can't find something that I want, I make it. So in this instance, I had a vision for the color scheme that I wanted to have in this hallway. And this was this deep chocolate brown and then my favorite saffron yellow. And so I could not find any sort of ribbons or anything that existed that would work for this concept. So I made my own with a hot glue gun. I love the feeling of being the steward of a property that will endure long after I've gone on. And I think that this home has that feeling to it. We are able to love it and give it the attention it needs today, but in 30 or 40 years, I have a feeling that somebody else will be doing that. And the understanding that this house is so much older than we are and has seen so much more history than we will ever see is something I love. It makes me feel like we have, sort of a joyful obligation to make sure that it continues. One of the things that I love most about this house is this sort of authentic vintage charm. And vintage is something that applies to after a certain date, and this certainly is older than most things that we term vintage. But one of the things that we loved about it was the historic old glass in all of the windows. And as a result of that, we have extremely high heating bills because there is not a single window in sight that isn't probably older than 75 years. And it gives us that really beautiful, wavy old glass feeling. I would say that my sense of style ends up being that to which I respond. And so maybe it sort of defies categorization, but I have been called in the past a grand millennial and sort of classic with a kick. I love traditional design, but I am always looking for ways to make things that are traditional and therefore sometimes have a connotation of being staid or older, feel a little bit more young and vibrant. And I think we do that most often with pattern play and color. So welcome to the family room and also my most favorite hallway in our home, which happens to be this high gloss coral lacquer. I absolutely love this color. As you probably know by now, I absolutely love color, period, but I just find it to be so incredibly flattering and so beautiful, and I love the way it mixes with the chocolate brown and the cream of the floors. In our family room, which sort of began its life as the master bedroom for the people that lived here before we did, it was a very, very different feeling. There was a wall of closets, there was a skinny little window in the middle of the wall. There was a whole bunch of sort of faulty sliders. And one of the things that we did in this home is to put a really large number of French doors all the way around all of the first floor rooms on this home, because the gardens of this home are one of the things that really spoke to me when we were looking at purchasing it. So the ability to sort of open the doors and walk right out to the terrace all the way around the house was very important to me. This is one of the few rooms in the home where I haven't used a tremendous amount of color. So I used a Lee Joffa fabric as our hero fabric in this room, and it has these sort of really interesting greens and blues and a little bit of this natural color. And so to me, I wanted this room to feel quiet and sort of like a restful respite. When it's not a dark and gloomy day, this room gets an extraordinary amount of light. And so it was easy to sort of conceptualize it in a way that made it feel light and bright, and I didn't have to use a ton of color in here. One of the most important design aspects of this room that I chose to do is I chose to do a hand-painted ceiling. And I went back and forth quite a bit as it relates to how we were going to achieve my vision. And what ended up settling me on this wallpaper, which has this beautiful sort of antiqued mirror silver foil finish, is that it allowed me to cover the entire space without a lot of seams in the paper. When we were looking at doing it in a traditional sense with plate glass mirror, there were going to be a lot of cuts in the mirror, and that wasn't something that I wanted. So I did this silver foil Philip Jeffries, and then I had my decorative painter hand paint the treillage in a way that allowed it to feel as though it's shadowed. And that sort of brightness and interest to the ceiling took away what some people might have said was a real issue with this room, which was a lot of ceiling height, and actually made it, in my opinion, something that functions as an asset to the space instead of a detraction. So the hero of this room, other than our multi-fabric, is this massive ottoman, which was so large we almost had to take the doors off their hinges to get it in here, and the last part of it had to be constructed en situ. But it is the most functional, amazing piece of furniture maybe that we have in our whole house. Not only is it, once again, sort of firm enough for you to put your drink or your sippy, as my girls call them, down, but it's also soft enough for all of us to put our feet up on. And I wanted it to be something that was reachable from every single seat in this room. And so it had to sort of be almost as large as the continent of the United States, and it functions in an amazing way for us. One of the things about having an ottoman this size is that you then also have to have an almost equal number of interesting things on the ottoman. So because I'm a designer and I'm constantly interested in this sort of thing, I have a really large collection of design books. So I chose to do sort of interesting piles around the space that had these like sort of wonderful, interesting color variation to them and interest. And then I've layered onto them things that are special to me. So I have this really incredible porcupine quill box, which is an antique box. I also have these incredible quartz sculptures, which my children think are very funny because they're precious mushrooms, but I love them and I love the color. And then one other thing I would say for which I'm very well known is that I'm not afraid of a large flower arrangement. So in this room, we always have something that's got some interest and some height. Right now it's spring, and so we have flowering quince, but when it's not this incredible and available to us, I always do something like either a dried eucalyptus, and then I always have lots of really interesting plants potted around the room with lots of different color variation, because I think it's important to sort of live with greenery, and you'll see that throughout the home. Another aspect of this room, which was different than some other spaces in the home, is that it doesn't have a wood floor. And so the decision for us to keep this a brick floor, which is a traditional sort of sunroom application of that material, and then to cover it in this incredible cotton custom durry. I love this durry so much. My amazing friends at From Jaipur with Love had this made for me. We went back several times about thread color, and this color just happened to be the exact thing that we needed. And something about a cotton durry, as opposed to some of the other things that I've done in the home that I think is really lovely, is that it always feels very relaxed. And this is probably the most relaxed room in our home, and we spend the most time in it, so I wanted it to be comfortable. Conversely, I also wanted to remember who I was, and so I had to have lots of different things in this room, and one of the things that I chose, which probably was a bit of a head scratcher in the beginning, but I think it's worked out, is this beautiful inlaid French chest. And so to me, what I love, again, is a juxtaposition of something that's very informal, like a hand block fabric. And then with that, you have something that has really interesting tonal variation because of the species of marble, and then really interesting detail in the woodwork, both in terms of color and also in terms of the fact that it has this very feminine, organic shape to it. This room has such a beautiful view out into our gardens that it took me about 12 years to figure out what artwork I could put on the walls that would stand up to the view outside. And I could not love the art more. They are these incredible framed prints. They're done in this seagrass matting, this incredible framing. The frame itself is a piece of art. Again, these are from my best friends at Casa Gusto, and they have such incredible taste. And I was so thrilled to be able to use these all the way around the room because I think they're interesting enough that they stand up to the view of the great outdoors from all the rest of the French doors and windows. So right off of this hallway, we have my favorite bathroom in the house. The reason it's my favorite is because it feels like a garden. And because I have so much color saturation in the adjoining hallway, which is the coral lacquer hallway, I wanted to play off of that color, but I also wanted to give you a little bit of a moment of relief. So I chose this incredible Pierre Fray wallpaper, which has some of those colors, but then also has this really deep, dark feeling, which I love. I did custom sconces, and honestly, I couldn't decide between black and white, so I've ended up with striped. And depending on the day, sometimes we'll have the black facing out, and sometimes we'll have the white. That's just a little bit about my insanity. And then everything else about this space just feels to me very much like a jewel box, and I love that about it. It's the one room of a home that you're almost always guaranteed to have a guest use, and that's the powder room. So it should be something special. One of the things that I would say is sort of consistent throughout my home is a mix of high-low. So this particular vanity is nothing special. It is just a woodwork piece, which I had painted in a lacquer black. But because I can't help myself and I look at hardware as jewelry, I have these incredible pieces of hardware from P.E. Guerin, which is just an incredible company in New York that does the finest, most gorgeous hardware. And I never, ever, ever come into this bathroom that I'm not happy that I splurged on this moment of luxury. So I'm a really interesting mix of left brain and right brain because while I am a very creative person, I'm also very right brain in the sense that I'm very organized and very sort of by the book. And so the idea that in my current profession, which I feel like really is a calling, that's a place where I can use both sides of my sort of propensity has been a really wonderful thing for me. I began my life as a residential real estate agent in New York City. And now looking back in hindsight, a lot of the things that made me such a successful real estate broker, which were the ability to sort of communicate with my clients, understand their needs, and then match them to an appropriate property, are the same things that allow me to do what I do today. And I would say in that initial career, whether I realized it at that point or not, the idea of saying maybe we could just change the swing of this door, or if you just took this wall down, then you would be able to understand how these spaces connect to each other. That was probably above and beyond that of what a normal broker might do, and sort of dipping a toe into what ended up becoming my life. So here we are in my dining room, which my children call Narnia, because it is covered in a completely sort of enveloping way in a 3D boiserie, which is done by my dearest friends at Casa. So they had just started working with papier-mâché with the idea of using it as wall treatment and ceiling treatment, and they were doing a room in their shop, and I saw it. And absolutely fell in love with it. And I'd been trying to figure out what sort of iteration was next for this dining room. And so Casa and I, Augie and I, came up with this sort of tree of life pattern, which is a 3D set of branches and boiserie panels, which actually travels all the way around the space. And so not only does it have that three-dimensional aspect, which makes it really interesting and makes it feel almost magical, but it's a really complicated and incredible process that they've perfected, where, you know, this entire room was made in separate panels. There's 67 of them, and then pieced together on site. And so originally I had thought that I might do this in a color, but the actual natural color of the papier-mâché is so appealing to me. It's really quiet, it's really calm, and it's very warm. And so once I sort of saw what it was looking like, then from there we decided just to accent it with a very French blue. And the reason I say a French blue is because it has quite a bit of yellow in it again. So anything that has more red in it that is a blue tends to read more like a cobalt. This has a lot more sort of yellow and green in it, and so it's a much cooler, almost sort of Delft pale blue. And that's really the only color in this space other than the ceiling, which is also papier-mâché. One of the most important design elements of this room is actually something that we decided to do when we were installing these wall treatments, and that is that throughout my home you'll see many beams which are both load-bearing and historical, and therefore cannot be moved. This room is one of the few rooms that didn't have that, and so when we conceptualized this space and we're giving it sort of a new access on which to frame out, we thought of the fireplace as being the center, even though it wasn't traditionally that. And so we put this beam in decoratively, as they say, because it's not load-bearing at this point in time, and created sort of a vibe so that when we do walk from here into the kitchen, you'll understand that those beams are repeated throughout the course of the first floor of this home. One of the other things I love about this room so much is these antique chairs. They're one of the first things that I ever purchased as a young adult. They're covered in a faux alligator, and they are sort of a glee or like a grayed out white French chair, and I love them. They have always felt to me like almost a little bit masculine, which I love, and I'm crazy about them. For this room, one of the other things I wanted to do is sort of play up the way that we're balancing masculine and feminine. And so to me, that was choosing a very traditional, like a ticking stripe. This happens to be Schumacher, one of my very favorites, Cherie stripe. And then doing something with it that was more interesting in the sense that it's a traditional skirted cloth, and then at the bottom, it's got this really flouncy, interesting ruffle, which to me makes it much more interesting than it would be if it were just a seam. This piece is one of my most favorite pieces. I love it so much that I'm never 100% sure if I want to cover it in something, and it is historical, and so right now it's got this great sort of loose applique of this silk, and I like the fact that it's something different on the sides and the back than it is on the cushion. That's one of the things I like best about it. This space was originally what they would have used for all of their sort of cooking purposes in the home, and so it's got this amazing huge fireplace has really amazing old cool hardware. And then you'll probably note it's also got some really large logs in the fireplace. We could not find anything that made sense. Every piece of wood that I put into this fireplace looked like it had been eaten up. And so this is actually an amazing set of wood which was brought back from Vermont in the back of a car and almost caused the bar not to make it back because it was so low and so heavy, and those are going to live here for the rest of their lives because they can never be moved. So the fireplace mantle, the side pieces are again the papier-mâché, and then this is a really simple shelf that I chose because I wanted this just to sort of go away. It gives me a place to sort of have interesting things that I love, like this collection of silver. And then very purposefully, this is a piece of antiqued mirror, which was installed as a trumeau behind the papier-mâché. I didn't want it to be a furniture element. I wanted it to be an architectural element. Similar to that, I sort of wanted to play with different experiences of light. And so even though this is a colonial home, I fell in love with this vintage pair of Neiman Weeks, which are these incredible sort of almost brass art deco beaded sconces, which to me just, again, this room feels a little bit magical at all times of day, but particularly in the evening. And there's something about this light which almost feels like you're underwater. It's really special. One of the other things I love in this room is this clock. It is such a beautiful old French clock. I love it so much. It's Italianate, so even though it's French, it has an Italian sort of heritage in the way that it was created. And I will tell you that occasionally, even though it's non-functional and largely decorative, it decides to chime in the middle of the night or in the middle of the afternoon and scare all of us to death. So it hasn't given up the ghost, so we won't give up on it either. One of the things about this room that is different than any other room in my home is that I've chosen to light it from a couple of different vantage points. So not only do I have the sconces over the fireplace and the chandelier over the main table, but because this wall treatment is 3D in nature, one of the things I love most about it is lighting it from underneath. So I have these spotlights set out around the room, and most of them are in corners and they highlight interesting things, but it gives you this really great shadow play and reinforces the 3D nature of this branch. I love a bar cart. I love it even more when it used to be a French gardening table, as this one did. I'm a big lover of crystal and silver, which you've probably picked up on by now. And so I love old school cut crystal decanters. I love silver with patina. These are some beautiful glasses, which my parents gave to me that they got in Venice. Very, very wonderful. And then the second shelf of this is sort of a utilitarian function. I like baskets, I like linens, I like all of those things. And so having them sort of all here in one place makes it both usable and to me like an interesting adjunct. As it relates to entertaining, I would say that I both enjoy a casual mix and also really love it to feel elevated. So ways that I would say that it's almost always elevated are I love an amazing floral, always have really well-starched linens. I love china, have a really crazy china collection. But then at the same time, I will often, choose to serve something that is sort of a more traditional homey feeling. Like, we may be eating in this beautiful boiserie Narnia fairyland, but we may well be having like a chicken pot pie. Oh, I love decorating my own home. We call it the test kitchen. And I always say to my clients and my team, your own home is the only place where you really get to do what you want to do. And so for me, it is absolute freedom to scratch an itch with a particular fabric that I love, or try a color scheme that it might be more difficult to convince a client is a good idea. And because of that, and because it's so personal in nature, it feels like not only an expression of what I would like to do professionally, but an expression of who I am personally. So here we are in the kitchen of my 1790s colonial, and I phrase it that way because you'll note that this is the room in the home that has the lowest ceilings. This is a room of our home that obviously is the beating heart, and it gets a ton of action and a ton of traffic. And it was never going to be sort of a modern, gray, white, expansive kitchen. And so a few years ago, I decided that instead of feeling like a kitchen, it might need to feel like a library. And so I painted all the cabinetry and the woodwork in this whole room black, which was a real leap of faith and one that I've never regretted. I also did the countertops in a really interesting marble. It's a Calcutta viola, and much like its name implies, it does have a little bit of purple and blue in it, which I find really interesting, and it has a lot of movement, which to me, because there isn't very much stone in this room, was very important. I also chose to do our main kitchen table in a painted decorative finish. Our incredible decorative painter here in New York, Shelley Denning, did this tortoise shell, which has a lot of movement and interest in color and tonal variation. And then the chairs around it are obviously sort of a familiar kitchen workhorse, which is the old school gingham. What ties all of these colors together for me is the choice of the wallpaper. This is, some might say, the least practical thing I've ever done in my life, which is put a white silk wallpaper in my kitchen. But this was several years ago now, and I have never regretted it. I love the way that this wallpaper not only has that texture because it's the silk, but it also has such an interesting palette of a warm brown, a charcoal gray, a deep black, and then this really interesting multi-set of blues. So you have cornflower, a little bit of Delft, and then even like a little bit of teal in the darkest accent. And to me, it's just, I absolutely love it. Every single day when I walk down here, it makes me happy. So not only do we have this sort of built-in area which allows you to take advantage of as much space as possible around that oval table, but we also have little things like I've done here, which is putting in a little extra spot for us to put our shoes on in the morning. My girls are always sitting here with the dog doing math homework. And so that really gives us another place to sort of rest as we're in this kitchen. This is a structural beam. One of the things that I loved about this home was the old sort of character of all of these natural elements. What I didn't love was the color of the wood that I inherited, which was quite browny red, is how I would describe it. Not terribly pretty in my opinion. And so I spent, I don't know, maybe 47 hours lime waxing this probably 200 plus year old structural beam, because I will tell you that 200 plus year old wood is very thirsty, and that was a lot of lime wax. One of the things about this kitchen, again, that is a little different than almost any other room of my home is that there were actual overhead lights as a result of them having dropped this ceiling at some point in history. So this is one of the few places I got to pick some lights, and what I chose are these incredible Hadley pendants from Christopher Spitzmiller, who is just such an incredibly talented friend, and they're such beautiful light fixtures. I love them, and I particularly love how warm the light is from them because they have this gold foil inside, and so it makes this really warm thing as opposed to feeling cold or clinical in any other way. The other thing I would say is probably of note in this kitchen is that I do really love a good houseplant. Some of them are newer, and some of them have been with us for quite some time. I love a topiary collection, which is always, in my opinion, a very chic and elegant way to have herbs just sort of at the ready. Some of these are edible and some are not. Please take note that I'm not suggesting you eat them. And then others have been with us for quite some time. For instance, this is what we like to call the big green people eater. And I put this in 12 years ago, and it has grown so much and so fast that it gets probably a quarterly haircut, because otherwise you really can't make toast here in the morning. Under the subject of having done much of this house by myself, what I wanted to do when I moved in here 15 years ago was to find antiqued Mercury backsplash. That did not exist when I conceptualized it. And so I bought sheet mirror and used a dissolving technique on the back of it and created my own backsplash and then installed it myself. And I will say I'm so happy with how it looks. It was a wonderful experience, but I'm also thrilled that Ann Saxon Waterworks now do it for us. I like to collect a lot of things. One of the things I love to collect is china. So I have a massive collection, and because I have really limited storage in the kitchen, I actually swap them out on a seasonal basis. So in the kitchen at any given time is that season's china and when we might use it. So for instance, one thing we really love and use quite a bit here in the spring is this beautiful Janori green with this very deep blue. And we love that. And we will often use that with something like this for a little breakfast setting. So why don't you guys follow me upstairs and we can take a look at some of the bedrooms. And here we are in the primary bedroom. So the primary bedroom is a good example of knowing yourself and knowing that to which you gravitate. For me personally, it felt like the right thing for this room is for it to feel really enveloping. So this is a wallpaper, actually it's a fabric from Benison, which I had paper backed. I fell in love with it. Again, sort of both the movement of the floral and also a really interesting mix of colors is the reason why I gravitated toward it. It has some purple, it has some pale blue, it has pink, it has red, and then it has this really grounding natural color. And so all of those are sort of why I wanted this to feel like it was completely covered. It's not a huge room, and some people probably wouldn't have done that which I did, which is to do a canopied bed. But to me, this was sort of the point for it to feel like it was wrapping its arms around you. This bed is a bed that has traveled with me in almost every iteration of my life. It's an antique French bed, which I bought at auction 18 years ago, and my mother actually helped me decoratively paint it in this amazing Swedish blue-gray. It started out its life as yellow, and it's one of my most favorite things, both for the memory and the sentiment, but also because I think it's really beautiful. The bed itself is covered in this great stark fabric. I chose to run this fabric the opposite direction that it would normally run because I wanted it to have interest horizontally as opposed to vertically. Again, I do love a good oil painting, so it was important to me that a lot of my collection find a home, and they have done that here in the primary. So I love hanging something like a piece of art on top of a soft fabric, like either a curtain or in an interesting way, like on top of a bookcase. Another aspect of this canopy bed, which makes me happy every single night and every single morning, is the detail work that I designed for underneath the canopy, which is something that you see only when you're in bed. Because this home is so historic, we have fireplaces in 4 of our major rooms, the primary suite being one of them. This particular fireplace doesn't work, which means that it gets to just hold my collection of vintage oil paintings. This one is one of my very most favorites. We call her my spirit animal. She is definitely a character. And I love her, and I love sort of the layer of interesting things that we have here. When it is not a terribly dark day, this room gets a ton of light. And so as a result of that, it was easy for us to conceptualize of doing things that were a little bit lighter and brighter in here. One of the things that I love when you have a room that has a more formal aspect, like having, 8 sets of silk lampshades, is to do something unexpected like a jute floor covering. In this instance, it gives us both tonal variation, which is very forgiving for a house full of children and dogs, but it also gives us texture and interest, and believe it or not, it's incredibly soft underfoot, and so it's a terrific selection for a primary suite because you're most often barefoot. One of the other things that I would say about this room is that I love this chair. It has been suggested to me that perhaps at some point I might need to recover it. This is a gorgeous silk cotton velvet, which is just like the most special. And as you can see, it has been loved and loved and loved. But I think the fact that it doesn't appear new is one of the things that I love most about it. So one other thing that I love in this room, because I do believe that the primary is probably the place for all things sentimental, is this incredible piece of artwork, which is a charcoal sketch, which was done by my grandfather, Stanford Horn, who was a very talented artist. So here we are in my eldest daughter's room. This room came about because about 4.5 years ago, she told me that she wanted tigers on her walls. And she is just old enough at that point to have found Google and was showing me all sorts of tiger decals and things that she had in mind. And so I said, I think that we can accomplish that, but in a way that will make both of us happy. And the solution to that is this wallpaper, which I really love, from Papier-mâché. And one of the things I like most about it is that it's very unexpected for a little girl's room. My daughter has a very strong personality in the best way possible. And so having black in this room made a ton of sense as it relates to her personality. I like the fact that it doesn't feel precious. I love the fact that it's a hand-blocked batik. And because it's printed on this really lovely linen paper, it also has texture and interest. These beds are actually the beds that have served now at least 2 generations of dreaming girls in my family. They were mine when I was young and I grew up with them, and I love them so much that at a young age I asked my parents to save them for me so that my children could have them, and lucky me, they did. We covered them in a fabric from Schumacher, which is a really interesting, it's almost a mat-lisé. It's got both texture, but then it also brings in this sort of really interesting smoky black and a little bit of chocolate brown. This is a great fermoir fabric. So we had these canopies made and they sort of bring that corally red color out, which I love so much. And they give a little bit of interest and they draw the eye up in this room because we don't have terribly high ceilings. One of the other things that was important in this room is that we had both form and function. So in this space, because it's an old home, we don't have a ton of closets. And so we needed something that would serve her sort of growing storage needs, but also could function as a place where she could curl up and read a book. So having a custom window seat made that would house not only toys for when she was younger, but books that now she's older, where she can curl up and do math problems, was really important. Similar to that, instead of doing a very traditional dresser setup, we wanted to use the height all the way up in this room for storage purposes. So not only does she have a desk set up here and some storage for clothing underneath, but she also gets to display my vintage collection of Nancy Drew. So this is one of the connecting spaces in our home. And I would say one of the things about connecting spaces that is often the case is they are overlooked. In our case, we couldn't overlook it because you can see it from the front hall. And so what started out as a camouflage movement, which is that we had this sort of old school beadboard here in these walls, and I couldn't figure out what to do with it. So the first thing I did is I decoratively painted it in this chocolate brown and cream stripe. But then I was left with a very unusual problem, which is that our ceiling felt boring. So what I ended up doing is creating this really cool trompe-l'oeil where from the bottom stairs, walking all the way up, and when you're in the room, it feels like this is tented. And we took that a step further, of course, because I can't help myself. It's an occupational hazard. And we tinted all of our light fixtures in an opposing stripe, covered this adorable piece of furniture, which gets about as much use as anything in my home, in this wonderful quadrille, and used these incredible old French Art Deco sconces. Last but not least, I framed all of these myself and did the matting for them myself with an X-Acto knife when I was probably 29 years old. So Lord knows they had to find somewhere to go in the house. So of all the rooms in this old house that needed our love and attention the most, this is probably the one that was the scariest. When I first looked at this home, it had fake wood beams all the way across the ceiling. There wasn't a single straight line in sight, and somebody had been using it for amateur taxidermy, so there was also quite a lot of stuffed animals in the room, and by stuffed I don't mean the good kind. And so the idea of conceptualizing this as a nursery and now bedroom for my youngest child took a little bit more imagination than some of the other rooms. I started with this incredible David Hicks wallpaper, which again is that saffron yellow, which I love so much. I think I've mentioned that once or twice, but I didn't want it to feel too sweet. So I mixed that with some darker pieces of furniture, some chinoiserie, and some things that sort of gave it grounding and depth because I didn't want it to feel overly saccharine. Then we had to tackle the floor plan. There are a lot of windows and a lot of doors in this room, and therefore not a lot of wall space. So one of the elements of this room that makes it so functional for the way that we live is this built-in, which I designed. So not only do we have the storage on either side for her books and stuffed animals and all of those things, but then in between that, we're able to accommodate another set of drawers underneath the bed, and then this very functional, super comfortable from firsthand experience bed, which functions as sort of both a day bed and then also, you know, just sort of a place to hang out in this room. One of the other things about this space that's very unusual is that we chose to treat the ceiling as the fifth wall. So when I first papered this, we only went up to this point. And it felt like something was missing. And so we had to take the whole thing down again and start over with the paper and include the ceiling in it. Because without that, you lose this sort of wonderful warm feeling of being inside this cocoon, which to me is an important design aspect of the space. One of the things about this space that I love so much is the ability to use textiles that I really gravitate towards. And as it happens, this also happens to be something that my daughter loves so much. This is a sewn Britain, incredible fabric that we adore that is covering this really, really sweet, perfectly scaled chair for this bedroom. And I just think the whole thing just feels both accidental and intentional, which to me is maybe the best kind of design. I always use the word home instead of the word house because to me, a home is the backdrop for the memories that you create and the backdrop for the life that you live. A house is a structure. And to me, the ability to live in a home is what really matters.
Hi Homeworthy, I'm Emma. Welcome to my home in Suffolk. Come in, come and have a look around.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story. Before today's episode, click the join button below to support all of the storytelling we do on this channel. Our growing community of members help to directly fund more videos so we can capture these extraordinary homes from around the world. So join today to receive early and exclusive access to new Homeworthy videos.
Hi, I'm Emma Payton and I am a full-time content creator and mother as well, and I live here in a village in Suffolk. So we bought the house about 6 months before COVID kicked in, and so yeah, we got out of London. We used to live in Hackney, and we had our 2 kids there, and we decided to get out of London and move somewhere with some more space and less sort of city life, more country life, to bring our kids up. So the kids were 3 and 6 when we moved here, and we basically saw this house and fell in love with it. It was actually the only house we saw. It's a Georgian house at the front, and then it's 14th century at the back. And it needed quite a lot of work. So the windows and the electrics and the plumbing, lots of things that we kind of knew we had to do, but we didn't quite realise how big a scale it was. So yeah, we basically came to see the house and just completely fell in love with it. We got my parents' opinion on it because we have bought something in the past where we were a bit blindsided by the property, and it had loads of issues. But for this house, we were like, we'll get an opinion, and my parents were just like, it's amazing, but it's definitely a money pit. So we were kind of quite aware of like the amount of investment we'd have to put into it to make it the right home for us. But yeah, we're really pleased with the results, and it's been a bit of a labour of love, and definitely an ongoing project as well. When we bought the house, it had quite a lot of work done to it already, and there were a few rooms that definitely they'd kind of spent quite a bit of money on and working on the interiors, but it was definitely looking quite tired and dated. All the walls were yellow, and there had been fitted carpet everywhere, and that had all been pulled up. There were just wires hanging out the wall. The previous owners had pretty much taken everything from like doorknobs to toilet seats to the letterbox on the front door. So yeah, when we first moved in on that first day, it was quite a shock really, I guess, seeing the house looking quite stark and a little bit unloved really. So yeah, it was a very yellow house when we moved in, put it that way. Welcome to my giant hallway. This is just such an incredible space. It's a massive, massive hallway. And we completely fell in love with all the original features, which are the beams on the ceiling, and of course this sweeping staircase, which is just kind of sold the house to us really. And more recently we've put in because there's so much space in here, we've got room for a grand piano, which my husband got. He's actually a musician, so he plays this quite a lot. And we play it quite a lot at Christmas, which is fun as well. And then moving over here, this is a piece of artwork by an artist called Philippa Jeffrey, and I just love the colours. I think it really works well with the wall colours. And then this is a chaise longue that I got from a brocante, which is actually held in our village. They do it 4 times a year in their garden, and it's called a boulin. And I found this there, and I thought, again, green, it was perfect for our house, because green is one of my favourite colours, as you will see throughout the house. Another colour which you will see a lot is pink. This is a chandelier which kind of like pulls all the room together, and it's by Pure White Lines, and it's just the most beautiful kind of statement piece of lighting. Which more recently we've just put in a round table in the middle as well. And yeah, it's kind of just all finally brought the room together really. I try not to fill the space with too much stuff. Actually, for a long time we didn't have the table or the rug or anything in here, and my daughter quite often was roller skating in this area, and we thought actually as a kind of young family it was quite nice to have all the space in here as a bit of a just having a bit of fun. And we thought we'd have parties and things in here as well. So yeah, I think kind of more recently when I have thought I'd like to bring some pieces in, I thought still keep it quite simple. This jute rug with the scalloped edge, I liked the kind of the roundness to it and the way it sort of gave a bit of a centre grounding to the room. So this big hallway, basically on that side we've got a dining room, and then on that side we've got a living room. But I kind of wanted to kind of have a connection between all 3 rooms. So I've kind of done that a little bit through colour as well. So for example, there's the pink of the light here, and then when you look through into that room, there's a little bit of pink in one of the artworks on the wall. But yeah, so I've kind of tried to stick with a kind of slightly round theme in here. And yeah, not go too crazy with filling it with too much stuff, so we can sort of parties and things in here. And it's fun at Christmas. We actually had our Christmas tree here this Christmas. So yeah, it's a great space for that as well, and having lots of people in it. I actually went out this morning and did some foraging, which I quite often do. So yeah, I found some really nice blossom, and then these amazing, it actually kind of looks quite autumnal, which obviously it's not autumn at the moment, but I just love these colours together, and I just thought as a bit of a centrepiece, this is the table to kind of go for it with a bit of like extravagant foraged blossom and branches. Quite often I'll have just more traditional flowers here, but I feel like this is like a nice focal point to have a bit of a statement going on as you come into the house. And again, just helps kind of bring everything all together. So originally when we moved in, the floor was very, very dark. It had a very dark kind of finished varnish on it. A couple of years ago, we actually got the floors sanded because we didn't like the darkness. We actually wanted to create more light in this space. So yes, we sanded the floors, and after he sanded it, he was like, oh, what varnish do you want, and how dark do you want to go? But actually we just really loved the kind of finish as it was. So he just put quite a clear varnish on it to keep it quite light and just quite natural, really. But yeah, this is the original flooring, and it's quite drafty and quite cold in here, to be honest. But yeah, we love it, and you'll see in some of the other rooms we've kind of gone for it with rugs and things to add a bit of warmth and texture to the floor. But yeah, we love the floor. It's nice, yeah, original feature. So when we moved into the house, there were definitely lots of moments of what have we done, and that we'd maybe taken on a little bit too much. We knew it was going to be a big project, but yeah, definitely the first 6 months we lived here, I actually think I pretty much cried most days. We've completely just overwhelmed. Obviously I was here with young kids as well, so it was kind of about getting into the community as well and getting set up and established with meeting people as much, so being in a new village as much as kind of sorting the house out as well. So yeah, the first 6 months was definitely the most challenging. Yeah, it was quite scary at a few points as well. I actually think within the first couple of days we had moved in, I think I quickly said to my husband, like, I don't think I can stay here. I think I'm just going to have to go and like be with my parents for a couple of nights, because it was just complete chaos, really. We had like plumbers in, we had electricians in, there was just chaos everywhere trying to like piece together how the house works. So yeah, it's definitely been some serious lows, but then some serious highs as well. We're going to head over into the living room now, so follow me. Okay, so here we are in the living room, and it's another big space that we had to tackle. Yeah, we painted it light blue in here, and actually one thing we did do is we painted the ceilings and the walls and the skirting and the radiators all the same colour, just to kind of really drench it and make it feel a little bit more modern, actually. And again, we've got the original floorboards in here. And then some of the features which I love are some of the rugs, which I think just help to bring a bit of colour into the room. So we've got a couple of vintage rugs in here, and they also add a bit of warmth as well, because it can get quite cold in here. We've got the log burner, which we installed. That is amazing in the winter time to make it really nice and cosy in here. You can actually, yeah, just shut the doors off and shut the doors off here and get it nice and cosy. But yeah, the L-shaped sofa, which we got from West Elm. Again, it took quite a long time to kind of find the right things, but we quite like the kind of slightly mid-century feel, but the fact that it was on quite a big scale worked really well in this space. And then the coffee table, that is also from the same guys actually where we got the chandelier from, called Pure White Lines. And it's got a slight kind of 70s feel to it, which, yeah, it's one of the areas kind of like style-wise I think is quite fun with interiors. So we kind of, with the coffee table, and that led to sort of getting this arced, slightly retro lamp in here, which is probably quite unusual for like a Georgian house. But again, I think it's just quite nice to have a bit of fun with interiors, really. So yes, we've got the arc, and then we've kind of got some quite fun artwork that is by David Shrigley, and it was a nice way to get some colour in here as well. So we went with quite a big round mirror above the fireplace. Again, I quite like the kind of way that reflects the hallway, the round table in there, the round mirror here. Pops of red, definitely. So the chair, which is a Soho Home chair, yeah, that kind of unexpected red theory, they say. I think, yeah, red works really, really well in this kind of space. And we've got pops of red coming through on some of the pillows and some of the artwork, some of the candles. But yeah, I love this room. It's one of my favourite rooms actually to hang out in. Yeah, we've obviously got our television here, and then we've got a mid-century sideboard. Took me ages to source a really long sideboard basically, which I think I found on Vinteria in the end. And then the wall lights, they tie in with the chandelier in the hallway. They are by pure white lines, and yeah, I quite like that pop of pink against the blue walls as well. The beam, that was already like that. I don't know what has happened along the way, whether it was a beam that was then covered up with the kind of cornicing detail. But yeah, it's a really nice feature to the room. We did actually have a few issues in here with a bit of a leak in the fireplace. Over there, we actually had mushrooms growing in this room at one point. But yeah, it's a lovely feature to the room, and definitely, yeah, makes it feel like a really special space to kind of hang out in. Yes, so the flowers, I've actually got a friend that lives in the village, and she is a flower farmer, which is quite handy. So I got these from her basically. She's called the Wild Society. So yeah, I've put a lot of flowers throughout the house. I love having flowers in the house. I just think it makes the space really nice and complete and brings a bit more colour into the room. But yeah, these are some tulips that I got from her. So yeah, I didn't find those myself, but I got them from my friend. So this mirror is a bit of a statement mirror. You'll probably see throughout the house that I have a little bit of an obsession with wavy lines and scalped edges. You can see they're kind of like subtly everywhere. But yeah, I just saw this mirror, and it's from Anthropology. It's one of my favourite things. I shoot quite a lot of content in front of it, so it features quite heavily on my Instagram. But yeah, my lovely wooden wavy mirror. Come with me now, we're going to go and see the dining room on the other side. Okay, so we are in the dining room now, and again, amazing beams on the ceiling here. Such a beautiful original feature of this kind of the Georgian front to the house. And we've also got these original shutters which actually close. And we decided to go with some cafe curtains here because actually we are kind of on the street level and people can peer in basically. So yeah, we've just got a bit of a cafe curtain vibe going on over there. We kind of went quite dark with the walls, and then this kind of bright yellow. It's actually called Sudbury yellow, which is a Farrow and Ball colour, and Sudbury is in Suffolk. It's kind of like a Suffolk yellow. So this is the only remaining yellow that's in the house, because originally the previous owners, the whole house was pretty much yellow. So we embraced it a little bit here. Basically, this is a room that we kind of have Christmas in, and so we have our Christmas dinner in here, and we do dinner parties, which is, yeah, a really fun space to have it in. This was sold to me as a, which I didn't know, and then when I went to pay, the guy told me it was actually apparently a cocaine table. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but it spins around, and there's actually like a little mirror here, and you can put wine in the bottom. We obviously use it as a little kind of cocktail cabinet, which is why I bought it. And this is from the Boulin, which is one of the local kind of vintage brocante places, but it's just a really fun piece, and it's got like little slidey doors and up here. So yeah, we're really into kind of making cocktails. So yeah, this is like our little cocktail making station here. I just wanted some kind of like fun pieces really. Actually, I've had this for a long time. It's just from Oliver Bonus, which is just a UK high street store. It's like a little velvet, again, quite retro feel, which we love. And then, yeah, we've just got some disco mirror balls down here, which quite often I use as props actually in some of my content, for, especially around kind of Christmas time. But yeah, just kind of add a little bit of fun to the room. We've got a wood burner in here. And again, this room can get quite cold, so it's lovely in the winter to have that going. And then this was a print we had in our old house. It's called Lamella, and yeah, we had it in our old house and just loved it. It's just a really nice, big, bright, fun pop of colour, basically. I think it's just nice to have another kind of bright colour in here. It works quite well with the dark walls. And we kind of, the lighting, we absolutely love the brand Soho Home. So we got these lights and actually the chandelier as well from them. And yeah, kind of again, that quite sort of fun, slightly 70s influence. The table is a vintage mid-century table. It extends, it's actually fully extended at the moment. It's from actually a local lady that sells vintage furniture called Modern Antiques. And then these chairs are actually just a copy of a very famous chair, and they're just bought from they're quite cheap from Dunelm, because we ran out of money. Couldn't afford the real deal, so these have been brilliant actually. Just I think they work quite well in the space. And then we just got some little cosy sheepskin pads to sit on for when it's a bit colder in here in the winter for Christmas and things like that. So when we have like dinner parties, I've had like, last year I had a couple of girls' dinner parties in here, which were quite fun. And normally the table is like full on singing and dancing. Like I'm really into tablescapes. So there's normally a tablecloth, lots and lots of candles, lots of flowers, lots of like fancy glasses, and then yeah, kind of, I mean, to be honest with the food, I try and keep it really, really simple, just something that can be bought out and put on the side and people can just serve themselves. So yeah, it's normally all about like kind of going a bit extravagant really, and having lots of fun and having cocktails and champagne and yeah, having music on and having a bit of party in here really. But yeah, it's a really fun space to hang out in and yeah, have friends and stuff over. So in the past, I have worked as a buyer. I was actually a fashion buyer at Bowden for over 10 years. I've always loved fashion and studied fashion marketing and communication at university. So yeah, I was a buyer for a big chunk of my career. And then when I had my son, I actually set up a blog that was kind of based around kids' clothing, kids' gifts, finding things that I just wanted to share with people. And it was kind of just a bit of a sideline really, that I thought maybe it was something I could build one day. And my husband was quite encouraging that maybe if we ever moved out of London, it'd be quite good to have something like a blog, that you don't have to be commuting into London every day to do it. You can work from home and you can be a bit more flexible around the kids and family life. But yeah, it kind of went from there really. And then I started sharing outfits that I was wearing as a mum, and people were just really interested to see what I was wearing and finding out more about that. And then that's the way my blog and my Instagram kind of shifted to be a bit more about me, and outfits and styling and ideas on how to wear clothes and where to find good wardrobe staples. So yeah, that kind of shifted after buying. I went into that, and then after I had my daughter, decided not to go back to the buying role that I was doing, and try and focus full-time basically on my blog and my Instagram and becoming a content creator. So yeah, and I just really loved it. It worked really well around family life. I could be flexible, so I could take time off in the holidays to be with my kids. And kind of over the years, probably when we renovated our house in London was when I realised I also was very keen on interiors. So yeah, I think when we renovated our home in London, which was another really big project, but on a much smaller scale compared to this, and we did the interiors there. Again, people were just, anything I was sharing about it on my blog and on my Instagram, people were really keen to see more. So yeah, it's not something I've studied really, the interior side of things, it's just something that I love. And then more recently I've set up a Home account for this house, which documented the renovation journey kind of that we went on. So yeah, so it's kind of evolved into a bit of fashion interiors, probably a bit more in the last few years. We're going to go check out the rest of the house now. Okay, so this is the mini hallway, and really wanted to kind of go for it in here because it was quite a small space compared to the bigger rooms. I just love pattern and I love wallpaper, and just totally fell for this Print Sisters archive paper. Just kind of mixing kind of traditional print really with kind of a bit more modern colour. So yeah, we kind of went for it and mixed it with the dark green paint. And yeah, fun little wavy mirror on the wall, and it kind of then leads into our downstairs toilet. Again, just wanted to have a bit of fun with this downstairs loo, and we actually picked one of the colours kind of from the wallpaper to kind of like lead into here. And we have a bright orange bathroom basically. This is one area we've not really done anything, changed anything with the flooring. So we just painted over the tiles with tile paint, and this amazing sink, which was already here actually, with the little kind of shell detail on the side. So this is just a hand towel from Anthropologie. I just like the colours. I think the colours work really well with the space. And then the mirror, that's also from Anthropologie. Again, as you can see, another little wavy scalloped edge. And I like the kind of the blue contrasting with the bright orange. And then we kind of just went with dark skirting as well. And then a little bit of artwork on the walls as well. So we are in the kitchen now, and as you can see, it's very light and bright. This is the extension that we did a couple of years ago. And yeah, so this bit is all new, and the flooring is the oak parquet, which continues through from the snug room. And we had a kitchen designed and made for us. And as you can see, gone for green and pink as a little bit of a theme in here. The worktops are actually Carrara marble, which we sourced, which is the most beautiful worktop, but I must confess, it does stain and it does scratch, but we're kind of like learning to embrace those like imperfections that it brings. But yeah, the island is a really big island, and we've got our hob on the island here, and it's actually got an air vent built into it, so we didn't have to have an extractor fan above it, so it's almost like the extractor fan is in it and sucks everything down, which is a really nice feature. Yeah, we've got a little area here we can keep cookbooks and things. Yeah, we've got our fridge over here, big fridge freezer, and then yeah, pantry cupboard in here. We decided not to have kind of cabinets above. I'll show you in a minute the pantry cupboards we had built. But yeah, we were really keen to have a little shelf built, which was actually an absolute pain to create, but they managed to do it in the end, because we really like the idea of sort of using it as a bit of a display area for little bits of artwork and flowers, and then little bits from the pantry as well, which we brought through. So yeah, it's just quite a nice way, and actually quite often we move things around and it just makes it quite flexible to switch up artwork and colours and things like that. But it's a really, really great space to cook in. Me and my husband both love cooking. I tend to cook most during the week, and then my husband likes to cook quite a lot at the weekend, and we're trying to encourage the kids definitely to cook a bit more with us. So it's a well used and well loved kitchen. And I think that moving to this village as well, we don't have Deliveroo or anything like that on our doorstep, so we have to do a lot more cooking here. But we both love cooking, but we're just quite time poor, so when we do cook, it's it's just, yeah, great to do it. But I'd say both of us probably cook similar amount. So one of the things I love washing up in this spot is there's a really amazing view out to the village square. It's actually like a little walled garden area, but you can see the clock tower in the village that goes off on the hour every hour. But yeah, it's a really nice view out basically when you're doing the washing up. Makes it a little bit more enjoyable. I would say the room that I'm most pleased with was probably the kitchen, because I think as a mum and as a family we spend so much time in there, and the kitchen previously was it was kind of in the middle of the house. It was quite small and quite dark, not really somewhere we wanted to spend lots of time, and one of the reasons we wanted to move out to the countryside was because we wanted to be like around all the greenery and see our garden. So for us, it was a massive shift to move our kitchen and create an extension that connected the garden basically. So we spend so much time in our kitchen, and I would definitely say that naturally I love that kind of Scandinavian style, and I feel like in our kitchen that's definitely feels very me in there. And yeah, we love spending time in there. It's really nice and light and bright. And it's great, it's fun in there, and then it's nice to come into the more traditional part of the house as well, with the big rooms and the beams and everything as well. But yeah, probably the kitchen. So we worked with a local architect, and we were really keen to have a kind of big storage space. So he came up with this design, which is sort of built into the old part of the house. So yeah, we've got these nice big cupboards which kind of hide everything away, and they've just got this nice reeded glass, so you can kind of get a little peek in to see what's in there. And it's just got masses and masses of storage in there. We've got drawers in that one, cookbooks. They're a bit of a mess at the moment, but yeah, cookbooks, things for the dog, everything gets kind of hidden away. So those have been absolutely brilliant. And then over here we have got our dining table. Quite often I'll just chuck a tablecloth down, and yeah, it's just like that underneath. It's kind of like a bit of a mid-century feel to the table. And then these chairs here we splurged on and got the original Hans Wegner chairs, which we absolutely love. They're called the wishbone chairs. And then we just got these little padded seat cushions. This is from a local company called Farrow Home, which are really nice. And yeah, we've got a bench along that side, and chairs along this way, and this is where we have most of our meals basically. And it's got the most beautiful view out to the garden, which we've got in this big picture window we created. And it's just, a really lovely space to sit and enjoy our meals and look out on the garden. Over here in this corner, this is a bit of like an ongoing project really. I'm still trying to find the right thing. I was quite keen to have like a little sofa, maybe like a vintage sofa or a couple of 2 chairs in here. So this was actually a hand-me-down chair from my sister, but actually it's been great. And again, it's another popular spot for my dog to sit. But yeah, this is just a really nice little kind of chill out area. So the kids often sit here, or sometimes I'll sit there if my husband's cooking and to read a magazine. And just actually quite often I will just sit there when I have to edit content on my phone, and it feels really nice to still kind of feel connected to the garden. And it's nice and light and bright. But yeah, it's a nice cozy corner in our kitchen. So with the decoration of the house, one of the first things we did actually was start decorating with paint, because obviously paint is a great way to instantly change your home and make it feel a bit more you. So we kind of worked from the top down, and obviously then we did some work towards the end of that, and then 2 Christmases ago I think we finished the downstairs and did the final decorating. So the house very much went from being yellow when we moved in to being lots of different colours. So we've used lots of blues, lots of greens, lots of pinks, and then some colour pops as well, just to make the house a bit more kind of our style really. we really like colour, and the house definitely has moved away from being very traditional. It doesn't really have many antiques. I like to mix old and new in the house, but it definitely took quite a long time to find the right things to work in the spaces. So we went from a Victorian terrace house in London, and we had quite a lot of mid-century furniture, and a lot of that, when we put it in, was quite small, and the rooms just sort of swallowed it up, really. So it's taken a bit of time to find the right things, like finding a big sofa, and then sourcing things from vintage markets and brocantes, as well as getting some more modern things for our kitchen, for example, as well, because there's definitely a mix of old and new in the house, which we absolutely love. We love all the character that the house naturally has. So yeah, it's definitely a much more colourful, fun family home now, I'd say. Okay, we're going to go out to the garden now. Okay, so this is the garden. We've got the lawn on this side, and then we've created like a huge patio space because like eating outside, sitting outside, being outside is really, really important to us. So we created this area so we could have a nice big dining table here. Our barbecue's over there as well. And then on this side over here, we have got our outdoor sofa. So yeah, we kind of love just hanging out here as much as we can in the spring and in the summer, having barbecues. We've had a couple of parties out here as well. But the slabs we put down are limestone pavers, and I really love the kind of just the colour of them, really. I think it just works really well in this space. We've planted up and landscaped quite a lot of the garden. Up at the top there is the barn. So the barn is actually where my husband works. We converted that as well. So it's got a music studio in it, and it's also got like a little living area and a kitchen. But yeah, we really love this space. We've got a fire pit there, sometimes we have going, and the dog obviously loves it out here, and the kids running around. We've got a big magnolia tree in the middle. And at the top of our garden, we've got a pond actually as well. So yeah, it's just a really nice space that kind of just connects in with the newer part of the building, which has been clad in larch, silver larch, and yeah, kind of mixing old and new. If you look back on the house as well, you'll see the clock tower in the distance there as well. So with the planting, it's still quite early in the season still for quite a lot of things, but we've got hydrangeas. So we have a lovely big, I think they're called Annabelle hydrangea, which I think they'll be coming out in, I don't know, maybe 6 weeks time, but they're lovely kind of little big pops of kind of creamy white that we've planted. And then we have a mixture of like kind of quite soft grasses, and then we kind of mix it back with some more formal kind of hedging just to give a bit of structure to the garden. And yeah, there's quite a few flowers to bring nice pops of colour. And at the top there, we've actually got some wisteria, which was here already actually, and that's actually flowering at the moment, which is really pretty. But yeah, it looks quite green at the moment, but eventually it will be a bit fuller and a bit more colourful with the flowers. I would say my favourite thing about this house would be Christmas. It's just, I think when we looked around it, we just knew that it was going to be a really great space to kind of get all our families together and spend Christmas together here. I think just the proportions of the room and the kind of the romance of Christmas, I really feel like this house encapsulates that really well. So yeah, I think that's probably one of my favourite things is, I mean, there's lots of things, but yeah, probably having Christmas here has been amazing, and hosting that, as stressful as that can be. I think everybody that has come at Christmas the last few years has really appreciated the space and yeah, how beautiful a house can become just simply with a tree and some decorations on the mantles and things like that. So that's definitely given me a lot of joy. Okay, let's head back inside now. Okay, we're going to go upstairs now. I'm going to show you some of the bedrooms. Okay, so this is the master bedroom, and more beams, really high ceiling height in here. It's a bit of a wow kind of factor space. The room is huge, and again was quite overwhelming trying to work out what to do with the space. One of the things that kind of came to mind was that actually a four-poster bed would work really well in here. So we've got this four-poster super king-size bed, and it doesn't actually look that big in here because the room's so big. So it's a really great bed, and this is a quilt that my mum actually made for me. She's the most amazing quilter. So this is like, yeah, one of my favourite pieces ever that I will keep forever and hand down, a bit of a heirloom piece. And then the bedside tables, they are they're vintage rattan tables, which I sourced, and again I tried to pick something that was quite big for the space and had some storage in it. So yeah, really pleased with those. The lampshades are actually hand painted by a friend called Katie Bell. So we've got bedside lamps either side. There is a huge fireplace that we don't use, kind of takes up quite a lot of the room. And then, yeah, more recently over here we had this, actually the guys that made our kitchen, they made this sort of custom dresser table for us and some storage. So I kind of use this as a little dressing table. Stripes. I got these from Reimagined, and they are like quite a heavy wool, so quite good for this room because it gets quite cold in here. It gets quite drafty. And then over this side, we had these wardrobes custom built. Again, these are the guys that made our kitchen, made these for us. For a long time in here, I just literally had rails for clothes. We didn't really know what we were going to do. And then we sort of came up with this, because this slightly dead space in the room would be perfect to build some storage in here. So yeah, these are great. And I don't know if you can see along the bottom how wonky the floors are basically in here. So underneath this carpet is the original flooring, and it was in a really bad state. And we just decided that it was going to just cost too much really to get it all fixed and sorted. So we've actually, we've boarded over it and put carpet down. So it is underneath there, maybe one day for somebody else to have the joy of dealing with, but it is very wonky in here. And there's lots of, yeah, kind of ups and downs and creaky floors underneath. But yeah, we're really pleased with the storage that we've got in here. Really nice to have proper grown-up wardrobes. I'm going to show you a couple of things in my wardrobe. I have to confess I do have another area with more stuff, but this is kind of like my day-to-day stuff. I actually rent out quite a lot of my wardrobe, and I'm just going to show you, these are two things that have been really popular for people to rent. It's a Ganni dress and then a Cézanne little sequin dress. But yeah, I tend to keep my dresses in this side, and then I've got a little drawer down here for accessories. My husband does actually have a little bit of space down that end. And then in here I've got accessories, and then drawers with like knitwear and things in it. So lots of clothes. Because the ceilings were so high, we kind of felt like we wanted some kind of statement lighting, because it's, again, a big space that can cope with it. These are from Anthropology. And yeah, kind of quite fun, tassel-y lightings that we just thought, yeah, brought a bit of fun to the room really. So yeah, we've got one there and one here, and then we've just got lamps elsewhere. So we decided to keep this space quite neutral because of the beams. There's quite a lot going on. It was already quite busy. So yeah, we just decided to actually keep it very calm and very neutral. I think I can't even remember what the colour is on the walls. It might just be a very pale kind of like grey-white. But yeah, it's just quite a nice calm space really, and
I think at one point we were talking about whitewashing the beams, but we decided not to, so it was too big a job. But yeah, I've decided not go too crazy of colour in here and just have the colours from the quilt and the lamps and everything and the rugs to, yeah, kind of give that colour pop to the room.
Probably tips for finding your own sort of style or sense of style. I would definitely say think probably about your favourite outfit you wear, or maybe like an outfit that you wear that you've, I don't know, had compliments on, and think about what it is, the elements within that you like, whether it's the colour or maybe it's a shape or maybe it's dresses, and maybe think a bit more about what you can kind of get out of that. So yeah, I mean, for example, for me, probably in the last 5 years, I've just really discovered that dresses are just a really important part of my style. I think maybe becoming a mum, it was a very easy thing just to throw on and feel a bit more pulled together. And then colour as well, I think is really important. I know people are can be quite scared of colour, but again, it's just finding the right colour that works for you. And yeah, just being brave and kind of going for it really. But yeah, I'd probably say my main tip would just be, yeah, kind of think about what you've already got that you love, and you can always go on places like Pinterest, which I think is amazing for loads of ideas for outfits and style, and even create like a little like mood board of the things you love, and then keep that in mind, yeah, when you're going shopping, and yeah, start to develop your own style that way.
So this is our guest bedroom, and we have gone with a kind of, I think it's French grey colour on the walls in here. So fairly neutral, and then we've got a pink stripe blind. These are Tory Murphy again. And the headboard, which I actually did myself recently, just to tie in the bigger stripe and the little stripe, kind of went for it a little bit in here. The bedside tables are vintage ones that have been painted in yellow, and the lights they're like a Liberty print fabric. These are from Pookie, and these are vintage prints that used to be my granddad's. Kind of gone for it a bit in here with the kind of colours and textiles. This is an African print throw that used to be my mum's. Yeah, it's just a really fun space. Guests really love staying in here. We've gone with cafe curtains, linen cafe curtains on the windows for a bit of privacy. But there's, yeah, really nice light in here. And the ceilings are a bit lower in here as well, so it kind of has a slightly cosy element too. So this is the guest ensuite. It's a pretty big bathroom actually for a guest ensuite. But we went for it with the colour. This is pink. Farramball pink, and there's some more pink stripes. It has a roll top bath, and this was actually here already. But yeah, the roll top bath, which is a bit of an amazing statement piece, as well as the marble sink as well, which I absolutely love. I wish this was in our bathroom, but the guests get to enjoy this, and yeah, it's just a really, really fun bathroom. We put these wall lights in from original BTC. And then the toilet as well, that was already here, but a bit more of a traditional toilet, which is guests always find quite fun as well. And then there's a nice view out over the garden as well.
So the word home means to me is probably family. So definitely a place where we can all feel comfortable and really happy and create memories really. I want my kids just to grow up and have some amazing memories of this huge mad house that we ended up buying. So yeah, I think that's probably what home means to me.
Hey Homeworthy, I'm Claire. Welcome to my home in Texas. Come on in.
This summer, spend the hottest months of the year in style with Homeworthy as we visit the most extraordinary homes around the world. From the sun-soaked shores of the Hamptons to the classic beachfronts of Nantucket to the vibrant courtyards of Morocco, be sure to subscribe to Homeworthy's summer series to make every day feel like a vacation. You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hey y'all, my name is Claire Zinneker and I'm an interior designer based out of Austin, Texas, and I live just outside of Austin in the country. And welcome to my home. So the story behind this house is that I actually was living in New York for almost a year and was itching to invest in some land outside of the city. I was just missing the feeling of just being able to get outside, feel inspired, take a breath, and I knew that I wanted that for myself and I wanted that for if I have a family in the future. I wanted a place where kids could grow up and just run along a river. So I bought the dirt in 2018 and didn't have any more money to do anything, so I planned to just let it be as it is. And of course, best laid plans. I was with my aunt one day and she just casually was like, look at this house I found on Facebook Marketplace. Too bad I don't have a place to move it to. And I looked at it and was like, well, I have land. And I went and saw the house the next day, immediately fell in love with it, and I wrote the check with literally no idea how to move a house, what the heck I was doing, where I was gonna find the money. My plan was to invest in a piece of property and not live here full time. And then I met my husband. He was living in Colorado. I somehow batted my eyelashes and talked him into picking up and moving here to help me with this home. COVID hit. We were not working very much in Austin, because who was? Coming out here every day to work on the house, and it was just becoming a money suck. So we decided to rent out the home in Austin, pack up, and move out here in a construction site. Lived on an air mattress with bugs everywhere because we didn't have windows. And somehow he stuck around and married me. And now we have a kid. We live here full time. So again, best laid plans. Welcome to my foyer. This space was a space that actually probably still looks like we haven't done a lot to it, but we have done so much to this one little area. And it was a space that completely paralyzed me with design decisions. Honestly, I wish I could talk to whoever lived in here first, because I cannot for the life of me understand this room. The material on each wall is different. The front doors are different colors. I don't know if it was two spaces put together at one point, but one was yellow, one was blue, and I was completely unsure of myself with this area. So I let it sit for a long time until we decided to get married here, and that kicked me into gear. And I had a plan to just paint everything white. And once we put the primer on this wall, I hated it. And so I was like, it's always been moody, it just needs to be moody. I wanted people to walk in and it to feel like you're transported into this era. Maybe it had never been touched before. And I really just leaned into that. But when I painted this other side was a beautiful wood, and it had this amazing wallpaper that we uncovered. When we got the house, the wall was only as thick as this beadboard. So you would touch this wall and it would go like this. So we were like, we need to shore it up in some way. And the space wasn't centered. So I ended up taking this entire wall down, moving it over a foot, and building it back up. And when we did that, we uncovered this beautiful wallpaper that was hidden actually behind this wainscot chair rail. So we moved those boards up so that you could always see this wallpaper. And I didn't want to paint it. And so I just decided to have this space be symmetrical, but also very asymmetrical in color. And so when you see it, you have a beautiful deep green and then a very raw, with the wallpaper falling off, historic feel about it. Maybe even a little haunted feeling. And I also did that to the ceiling, which my husband did not approve of, but there was wallpaper on all ceilings and walls with cheesecloth, and we got rid of a lot of it, but I could not bear to get rid of it on the ceiling in here. So we kept it. It's falling off even though I've stapled it up, and again, it feels kind of spooky and haunted, and I love it. So yeah, this space is what it is. This is a little bench I found for our wedding that I reupholstered. I actually, on this floor only, when we were pulling up the linoleum, it was lined in newspaper. So I wouldn't let anyone touch this room but me. And I pulled all the flooring up myself, and I saved all of the wallpaper. And it dated from 1920s to about 1960. And I took some of it and I framed it. So this is that wallpaper. This is the newspaper that was on the floor. This is a crossword puzzle from 1933 that is framed in another wallpaper from a room. This is also from this floor. I would say I'm a minimalist hoarder is what I would like to say. Everything at least looks good, even though maybe it doesn't work or serve a purpose, but it makes sense in this house. And I found this upholstery. Again, I tried to mimic the feel of the wallpaper that was in this space so that it just feels very gathered. I bought about 3 rugs and none of them seemed right. Again, I kept leaning into this light colored feel and it just didn't make sense. So I found this deep, dark vintage Ushak that I think is beautiful, even though it shows all my animal hair. And yeah, everything is just a very lovely collected thing. We put these pewter sconces in. These are the original transoms with the original lead glass still in them. This chandelier I found in a client's house that they were tearing down. So everything definitely tells a story and gives me an excuse for being a collector. And this is my wedding bouquet. I dried it. I can't let go of any of my wedding flowers. It's a problem. This is a little piece I found in Round Top that I love. And this was my great-grandmother's. My mom's cousins actually shipped it to me from Minnesota when I got this house. And it's perfect here. All right, and now we are walking into the main hall, I guess. It serves as a little seating area and also dining room. I liked the idea of going from this dark space into this very open, very bright, very light-filled room. It pulls you through, and it's a kind of a shocking transition, which I think is really fun. This was, I guess, the original porch. You can see the ceilings are different up here, and the walls actually all along this wall was exterior siding. So we pulled all of that off and put in new sheetrock, which also is just primer because someday I will lime wash it. Just haven't had time yet, which is cobbler's kids never have shoes, right? So this was the first piece I bought for the house before the house was even really the house. And Adam and I bought it on my birthday. I think it was like $200, which is crazy. And I love it so much. And it houses my collection of random things. So I always have fresh flowers. We actually have a cut flower garden as well. So we actually use this all the time. I've collected every jar in the world, as you can see. Things that, you know, I probably will never use, but things that I use all the time. And then I also have an affinity for silver. So I have a little bit of collection of that as well. And, you know, just bits and bobs, things that were in the house when we bought it that I haven't used yet. You know, this is one of the door latches on the door. that we haven't put back on yet. And, you know, I have, let's see what else I have in here. Gosh, it's kind of embarrassing. There are tons of fossils at the river. This was a fossil that we found. It's wild. These chairs I found at Round Top. Some of my greatest things came from Round Top, and they're just my size, and they're so comfortable. I didn't even have to reupholster them, and I got a really good deal on them. And they've moved around a lot. They've gone from our little sunroom to over here, and I think I like here the best. And then this is obviously a vintage frame, and this is a photo that I just kind of stuck in here of me and Adam in our wedding clothes in our field with our farm creatures. So this door goes to our guest bathroom, and we had it stripped, but it's not as raw as the rest of the doors because I kind of loved a bit of that paint still on it, even though it's not chipping off, it's smooth on there. And this, I think an old boss gave me, and I should rewire it and actually put it on, but right now it's just decor. This is a French mirror that I got a really good deal at Round Top on, and it's perfect. This space, I was gonna have shelves on it shelves in it when I designed it, and then it's kind of just become this changeable art moment. Sometimes I have art, sometimes I have our Christmas stockings, and now we have this mirror. This is our second bath, and I love it. It's my little color gem in a house that's pretty neutral. So we did a Roman clay in here with Portola paints and did it ourselves. It's a process, but a fun one. I love what it did to the space. We kept the ceilings raw in here, and then, I mean, it's a pretty simple piece. I found a old dry sink, and I converted it into the vanity in here, and gosh, most everything in here is found or vintage. I DIY'd. I took 2 pieces of a lamp together to make this sconce. This is an old French mirror, and then this shower is all done with Riad tile, and I had my husband DIY this shower glass. I bought all the pieces, figured out how to make it to look like it's a very high-end custom brass and glass shower partition, but he actually did it all himself, so very impressed with it. I'm an interior designer, which is interesting because you want your home to be a portfolio for the aesthetic you do for your clients. And as much as I love this home, I don't think that it is necessarily the aesthetic that I do for my clients. I do a lot more European modern, but I do lean historical, which I think this does show, although it's a bit more farmhouse. But it was an interesting identity crisis because I had so much fun with this house. I love this house. I never planned to live full-time in this home. So what is now a bit of a brand identity is also not. But I've learned to just lean into it and have a lot of fun with this home. So I leaned into whatever you want to call it, cottagecore, farmhouse, New England, and I sourced most pieces in here vintage. One, again, because of budget, but also because I just really wanted to lean into the story that this house tells and kind of show people that you can still live a modern life with repurposed pieces and have a lot of fun with those and have a lot of fun with the texture. So looking around, maybe some lighting, our bed and our sofa, and some of the cabinetry is new, but everything else is thrifted, vintage, antique. A lot of the big stuff that we did in the house, besides, you know, the obvious, we had to put a new roof on because we had to demo the roof to move the house. We had to pull all the 4 layers of linoleum off the floors. We pulled all the sheetrock off the walls. We pulled all the sheetrock off the ceiling. So those were really big, necessary things. HVAC, never had HVAC before. But apart from that, I really tried to honor the existing footprint of the house while also making it work for the needs of nowadays. I didn't want to do a modern open floor plan in this house. And something else that was really interesting was that there was at least one door or window in every single wall. So there was literally no place to put a bed. So we had to kind of rethink things like that, which means moving windows, closing in doors, and just making it a functional, practical home, but still honoring the original history. We tried to find replications of trim where we could. We kept a lot of the wood. We kept the original floor. I tried to not touch floor and ceiling in the entire space. So then we have the dining room. I always said I wanted a big, long dining table right here. And so I have it. And we use this table for everything. We office here sometimes. We have big dinners here. We throw our stuff here. And it's a great French piece, and it just gets better with age. The chairs are collected from Round Top as well. And again, you can see the living room, you get the light from there, you get the light from these back doors, which actually these doors we found in our barn before we moved it, and the guy just gave them to us. They're huge, they're beautiful. They're as old as this house probably. They came from Kyle, Texas. And we sort of had to cut them down, get the rot off to fit them into our house for these lovely back doors to our deck. This piece is a Round Top find, and I love it dearly. It's a French piece as well, and I am a huge fan of mixing wood types and mixing wood colors in a space. I don't think you should be afraid of it. As you can see, I have a million different types of wood, and in my opinion, they all work together. I think as long as tonally they make sense, then you can just have fun with it and lean into it, and that sort of collected look is definitely the look we're going for here. And then, yeah, this kind of becomes this sort of transition from dining room out to the outside. So we obviously have catch-alls to house all of our outdoor needs, gardening tools, things like that. So that's why I got this piece here, and it is very full of gardening stuff because I love gardening. And it is definitely a collection of things. I love a display book, a coffee table book. Can't have too many of them. This is some random beautiful, I guess a light fixture that I found at Round Top that I never rewired. I just treated it as a sculpture, and then I hung a bunch of little bouquets off of it. When we got married, we didn't have a bridal party, but we had all of our friends' children in the wedding. And so these are all just the little bouquets from the little boys and girls that were in the wedding, and they're all dried, hanging. A French mirror from Round Top. My whole life is from Round Top, basically. For the kitchen, I wanted to open that up a bit more, again, so that people can feel very connected to the kitchen and the other spaces. But again, I cased it. Eventually, we'll probably put glass up there in the transom to make it still feel like the rest of the home historically. In here is what they would call an unfitted kitchen. Which is apparently trending right now, but for me it was just a practical budget thing, so love when that happens. We had one bank of cabinetry that is obviously practical, purposeful, new, but everything else is a bit of a hodgepodge of cupboards, Hoosier cabinets, and just anything I could find to fit necessary kitchen items. We did open shelving in here. Again, I wasn't planning on living here full time, so this was kind of like a fun vacation home. And practically speaking, I think uppers would be helpful in here, but I do love a good styled moment, so I make it work. I really leaned into the historic feel, and I found a vintage stove and fridge off Facebook Marketplace, drove hours to get them. My dad had to help get them out of the people's homes, and then I found someone to restore it. So we cook on this every day, and it actually works really well. I found this sink in the barn before we moved it, and he sold it to me for a couple $100. And I built this base that it sits on. I can't believe it's still standing because I did it very haphazardly. one day because I was determined. Everything was to the studs and I was like, the sink must be in the house. So I built it one afternoon and I lugged it in myself and put a sink skirt up, and it's served its purpose really well. We put in these windows. So the original kitchen had one window here and then one window there. And I found these windows in an antique shop and put them all in so you can have a view of the land and the river, and then took halves of them to create those there. I found this island. I get a lot of questions about it. I found this island on Facebook Marketplace for probably like $75. And it's perfect. We use it all the time. This cupboard is one of my favorite finds. I got this at Round Top, and I store my collection of random jars and vessels that I use, and all our cups go in there, and it works out perfectly. Who needs a pantry? I cut these from our olive tree today. We have amazing gardens outside, and so I can forage and use one of my many vessels that I have a problem with collecting. And we always have fresh flowers, whether it be greenery or zinnias, cosmos, something from the cut flower garden. This piece of marble, when I was just starting out, just out of school, I was gifted a remnant of a piece of marble. It was longer than this and bigger. I was gonna make it into a dining table. I was very excited, and my carpenter broke it. It was very tragic, but it was super expensive in my mind. And so I've carried it with me from every house, and I love it. I love a piece of marble just as a styling piece. And again, I think the more you layer, the more lived in something looks, and the less you care about it being perfect, the better it is. And really the more warm and inviting it is for someone. I'm kind of just wowed that we're living in this home that has been here standing for so long and is still standing and is beautiful. The 2x4s are actually 2 inches by 4 inches. The wood is all longleaf pine. So I just feel really proud that I have a piece of Austin history. I feel proud of how we've honored it, and I just feel really grateful for the challenges that this home brings, as well as the benefits. My husband and I love having people out to our home because it serves as a reminder of what a beautiful, unique experience we have here. And I think the one that I've gotten more than once is about the home, and I think it's about the land. But people kind of say, like, I feel like I can breathe here, and that makes me really happy. So moving into what I guess is our living room, sunroom. Honestly, I think something that I want to do in the future is make this living room a bit more of a living room, maybe a bigger sofa, maybe get rid of this door. It was our primary way to get out, but we've changed things a little bit and it's a little unnecessary. So making this door into a solid wall, giving us a sectional, but for now it serves its purpose, and honestly, it's usually just a playroom full of baby toys everywhere. So, you know, houses just have to kind of grow with whatever stage you're in. And right now we're in the baby toy stage. This was a second porch add-on that they enclosed at some point. So it also has a porch ceiling, but it's tacked on. This part of the house, actually, the house mover didn't want to move. He charged me $4,000 more to move it, but for me it was worth it because of the square footage that it gave us. And these windows were all here already. So I love this space. It's just like not very fun in the summer, obviously, but it is just the brightest, most inviting room. Always full of light everywhere, which is really fun. And you sit here and you have a great view of the dining room and the kitchen. So again, it all feels very connected. When we have gatherings, everyone can be in multiple places and they can still communicate with each other. A question I get asked the most when I post a photo of this space is where I got these window treatments from. They are just a beautiful natural woven wood material, and we did a top-down, bottom-up treatment, which means basically that, you know, you could have complete privacy down here and you can still see the sky, because, you know, as much as I wanted a bit of privacy, a bit of sun blockage, I didn't want to cut off the light and the sky and the view of the trees that these windows give. So I brought in a woven wood instead of a linen in here to, again, that sort of sunroom feel. And I'm a sucker for a seagrass and a jute rug. Just throw them down, they hold up against anything, and you know, they're pretty easy to replace if you need. Off of the foyer, we have our primary bedroom. Everything in this space besides the bed is antique, vintage, repurposed. So really had fun, again, collecting things for that. And also, fun fact about the house is that we don't have closets, which makes for a fun time for storage. And we had to be really intentional with the furniture pieces and the cabinetry that we put in to each space. Everything serves a purpose and everything is pretty full with stuff. I have a chair problem, a slight chair addiction, and I personally think it's a great addiction to have because everyone needs a chair to throw a bunch of stuff on. So we have one on each side of our beds for that purpose. This was so tiny. If you saw my husband, he could never actually sit in it. He's very tall. But gosh, I think this is, you know, this is a bit of an East Lake design. And I found this just at an antique store, I think for about $20, and fell in love with it. And then the art is a vintage frame that I found, and then it's just a collection of, again, my wedding flowers that I put together almost like a bouquet to preserve them. The nightstands, it's very hard to find good antique pairs of nightstands. So I love these. They're pine, and they're really small, which I love. They don't take up a lot of space. They don't block the window very much. I went with the linen headboard in here. We have a lot of wood going on. I wanted to kind of take a break from that, and I love a cozy linen headboard. I like to keep my bedding pretty neutral, and I always have some kind of coverlet or a drop cloth because inevitably a dog will jump on my bed, and this way maybe they won't get my bedding dirty. So everything is very practical, even if it doesn't look like it is in my house. The windows, I love my window treatments. It was such a game changer for us. It doesn't look like it when you're outside, but we actually do have neighbors in somewhat close proximity. So I wanted a bit of privacy. I wanted it to feel really soft and luxurious because, again, we have so much wood in this space. So I wanted to do floor to ceiling, sheers, and then Romans as like a double privacy. We never close them though, so I don't know how private they actually are, but I love a layered window treatment. And here is our main bathroom. It's huge and I love it so much. It was really hard to figure out placing two bathrooms in the center of this house. So what I ended up doing is taking one room and dividing it into the two bathrooms. So behind me, on the other side of this wall, is the guest bath. And then that enabled me to put in the big shower I wanted, the nice tub, and in here, huge vanity, which I love for the storage aspect, of course, but on the day-to-day, what I didn't know when I was designing this is that it also serves as a great changing table. So that is usually what it looks like when we're not filming. And it's great. Change the baby here. My husband and I each have our own very separate spaces. This is more wedding flowers that I framed in an antique frame. Medicine cabinets in the mirrors that we DIY'd because storage. And we did a quartz counter in here. I ended up working with a quartz company to provide all of the material for that, which I love. White oak. These floors and the bedroom floors were terrible. They were like I said, a dark red, brown, shiny, and when we sanded them, we had to be really careful because they're very much on their last wear layer. And when we did that, they were really orange, and I was not sure what we were gonna do. We did a ton of mixes, kind of like a clear coat mixed with a bit of a white wash to get this beautiful, I think beautiful, light wood feel. It really cut the orange. They're the only floors we've redone in the whole space. Everything else is a little bit of a splinter. In here also, some fun facts are that here is some original trim that we were able to preserve. This is a vintage door that I found. We DIY'd this paneling all the way around as well. We have a vine that lives in our house, which my husband hates, but I love so much. It's like a jungle in here. And we ended up just doing a shower, like a piece of linen that I sewed for our shower curtain, again, to save money. There's a lot of saving money in this house because the stuff you don't see behind the walls cost a lot of money. The ceilings everywhere are 11 or 12 feet, I think. And I don't even know if I should admit this, but it's just primer on these walls. I had grand plans to do a lime wash, and here we are. I had a kid instead. So yeah, we use this bathtub multiple times a day with the baby. I love it so much. And again, it's that sort of mix of old and new in here to, you know, do a nod to the old and the original, but also new cabinetry because we live here. Growing up, I wanted to be a veterinarian until I was about 5. And then I found out you had to put animals to sleep, and I was like, game over. So I transitioned quickly into wanting to be an architect. My uncle in LA is an architect, and I have always just really greatly admired him. And I think when I got just a little bit older, he, you know, was watching me. I did a lot of art, I built a lot of things, I painted a lot, and he said, I think you probably would love interior design. And I must have been in grade school, and I said, okay, I'm gonna be an interior designer. And I didn't try it out before I went to college for it, which luckily I ended up liking it. But yeah, I one-track mind, went to college for interiors, graduated with a degree in it, and I've never looked back. Off of the foyer on the opposite side of our bedroom is the guest bedroom, now turned nursery. I love this room. This room has to-the-floor windows, which when I got this house, they had a window unit here, and then I think they had just boarded up part of this. So I didn't even know that the windows went all the way down, which was a very fun discovery. But we had to kind of remake the windows to make them work. I tucked her crib in here, but we kept the bed as well. I slept in here some when she was a little baby, but now we don't really use this bed. And I kind of go back and forth on if we keep it or what we do with this space. So this little wardrobe piece was gifted to us by my mom's friend, and it houses all of her clothes. That and a dresser is all we have because, again, no closets. There was a door here in the middle of this wall that we had to get rid of so that we could have a bed wall. Adam and I did this wall ourselves, and we just loved the colors that came when we started piecing this together, and we also worked really hard on it. So we decided to keep it and not paint it, which I love it. I go back and forth on if I want to wallpaper it. We sealed it just so that there's no paint chipping off of it, of course. But again, it's a bit of a nod because we ended up painting this ceiling, and I always like to keep a little bit of original in each room. All right, so next up is my office. I work from home, and so I really work all around this house, but when I can have a moment of quiet, I work in here. This was a completely dark wood space, and it honestly was, apart from the entry foyer, it was the last room we touched. It was a dumping ground for everything. It was so full I couldn't even walk in here. I couldn't wrap my head around this one. So when we finally decided to tackle it, it was a fun one. It was a very hard one. All of this wood was really shiny, dark stain. So I had to come in with a brush and strip it all by hand, which took hours and hours and days. And then I was really torn about painting any of the wood in here, but my office I needed bright and, you know, inspiring. So I did kind of a middle ground where I painted all the shiplap. So I left all the wainscoting natural wood for a nod to that history, and then I left the shiplap on the ceiling also. This is a vintage pendant that I got off of Etsy, and yeah, we had a door into the kitchen here that we closed up. I started to remove this little built-in cabinet, and it broke my heart to do so, so I put it back, and it just makes sense. It should always be there. And slowly, I'm just trying to make sense of this being a design office. I have a lot of samples, I have a lot of products, so it's a lot about where to store things, display things, and actually work here. I found this amazing piece before my wedding. This was around Top Find as well. It was massive, and we needed something really big for this wall. It was all a light wood, as you can see, so I decided to be really bold and push myself out of my comfort zone, and I painted it all a glossy black and then left the insides raw wood, and I love how it turned out. It is packed to the brim of samples for our projects, and then I do a mix of like displaying fun things, but also I have practical client samples, working client files here as well. But it's a great backdrop for my Zoom calls. The word home to me, as just a human and also as a designer, is a space that uniquely and specifically captures the person who lives in it. I always say every space tells a story, and I really try to do that in every home that I design. I try to make it a space that feels like the people living in it, a space that, despite if it's high-end or if it's budget, people feel comfortable being in it, and a space that can wear with time and be actually lived in.
Hi Homeworthy, I'm Garrett.
And I'm Jonathan.
Welcome to our home in Costa Mesa.
Come on in.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story. Scan the QR code to subscribe to our new channel, Weddingworthy, where we celebrate amazing couples and the love stories behind their perfect day.
Hello, my name's Garrett Brewer-Sweet, and I work in the medical device industry, and I'm also work part-time in our interior design company, Brewer-Sweet Co.
My name is Jonathan Brewer-Sweet, and I'm a full-time interior designer in our company, Brewer-Sweet Co. We are currently in Costa Mesa, California. This is our 1961 bungalow style home that we purchased as is with no inspections allowed. Thankfully, it had a good roof on it, but we have had the opportunity to completely gut and remodel the entire thing and make it our own.
So what inspired us to choose this particular home is we were looking in the area and we saw that this house was coming on the market on like one random Sunday. And so we just happened to come by and look at it. And my dad was really encouraging of like, you need to buy property in this area. It's a good area to buy property. And the house was being sold as is, but we kept looking around and there were a lot of houses that had been flipped, but we didn't like the finishes, or there were just little things that we didn't like that we would have wanted to change immediately on purchasing, after purchasing. And so to us, it was just a good property, end of a cul-de-sac. And so that's kind of what spearheaded us to do it.
Yeah, even though we knew it would be a big undertaking, being interior designers, Garrett also works with me in our interior design business, even though he also has another full-time job, helping us with kind of some back-end operations things and just some great sourcing here and there when we need it. So we thought that it would be a good opportunity for us to really fully understand the full build process, doing it ourselves instead of just working with a client. And part of the reason we decided not to buy a home that had been already flipped is you never know what's going on in the walls. Also, for the same cost of buying a home that had already been flipped, we could do this home ourselves, understand that all of the plumbing, electrical had been replaced since it was very outdated, and we could make it our own. Welcome to our living room. This is the space where we spend the majority of our time. We have a few pieces that we really love in here. First of all, this table is an antique that we found in an alleyway where we used to live. Someone had wheeled it out, as people would often do, to leave furniture to be picked up. And we were riding our bikes. We stopped our bikes, parked them, grabbed the table, put it in storage, and we had it for 2 years until we were able to move into this space. This is a painting that a friend of ours, Davis Donahue, made for us. This was her word series, so she wrote the word radiant on the canvas before she started painting, which she felt represented us, and then she used a color palette that she felt would evoke the emotion that we helped to create, and it's one of our special pieces. And this is a bust that we found in an antique store. We just thought that it paints a fun picture. And some branches. We love bringing natural life into our space.
This is the living room. I'm a huge Facebook marketplace. It's like a hobby of mine. And so these are my pride and joy Facebook marketplace finds. The couch is my pride and joy Facebook marketplace find. This is a cool old antique coffee table that we bought from a client of ours, which was great because we needed a coffee table.
Some fun books that are special and meaningful to us. A lot of people don't read coffee table books, let's be honest. But anytime we're sourcing coffee table books for ourselves or for clients, we want to make sure that they speak to the interests of each person involved. This is actually a ceramic piece that Garrett made himself. He's a ceramicist, and any ceramic piece that is styled with flowers in our home is always one of Garrett's specialties. So you'll see the Amerigo stamp on the ceramic pieces. Garrett's ceramic name is Amerigo Supply. That's his middle name and family name, which is really fun.
This is our fireplace. So when we bought the house, it did not look like this, obviously. This was actually brick, and we had them frame out the top so we could make this kind of dramatic looking chimney situation happen. And my wonderful husband, Jonathan, did a lot of YouTube DIYs and was able to make it look like this. And we love it. It looks so cool.
When we moved into the house, the ceiling line came down to where the corner is at the top, and it was just straight across. It was awful popcorn ceiling. So thankfully, when we were here with our framer and we opened everything up, he told us that we were able to vault the ceiling, which was an amazing addition to this home, even though we're only sitting at about 1,300 square feet, which is just great for the two of us. This just makes this room in our house feel so much more open. So we're both very tall. I'm 6'4" and Garrett's 6'7". So when we first walked into this house, it definitely felt very enclosed, very small. It smelled awful.
Exactly like you think it would smell.
Exactly like you think it would. There were like black tracks going through our house. The sweet, sweet woman that we bought this house from had a walker, but unfortunately,
walkers and white carpet don't go hand in hand.
No, they don't. There were walker tracks all the way through the house. She'd owned this home about 60 years and was the original owner. So there was a lot to deal with. These lighting, as Garrett mentioned, is very important to us. These are some lights that we got from a company called Huey. We just really love kind of this rounded motif that has actually been an element that we've used throughout. You'll see a lot of arches and round shapes in our house. We just think that it breaks up a lot of the right angles that exist in a traditional ranch style 1960s California home.
And then this right here used to be a window, and we actually swapped it out for a French door because it kind of gives us the indoor-outdoor situation.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. Some more art from a local artist. This is from an artist called Keith Jensen. He operates out of Orange County, and we thought that it was just really dramatic, and this space was calling for it. This is an antique dentist desk that Garrett's grandfather acquired. We both come from families that love antiques. And it had been at Garrett's place of work for a really long time. You can see here, there are actually little spouts for water and air. And right here,
The spit.
this is like a little spit area from when it was a dentist desk before.
This is like for all the tools. I think there's
Yeah,
one over
there are
there
even
too.
like some organizers up here for all of
Yeah.
the different dental tools. And we thought that it would make a perfect bar. So
As one does.
As one does. So we turned it into a bar. It does have an accordion top that comes up, but we folded it down. It's great for entertaining. We've hosted many parties
Yes.
using this desk. And then we added in the wine glass holders down below, and then just a little wine rack to really complete the piece. And last, our rug in this room. This is an oversized jute rug. We love using jute rugs in projects and for our own home. Just add some great natural texture. They break down over time and become so soft and lovely. And when we moved into this home, the rug before was a little bit undersized. So we are also big fans of giant oversized rugs, even if they extend past the pieces of furniture that you have, because it just adds a really great softness to a room and makes everything feel really grounded. We always want to make sure that a rug in a room, every piece of furniture is touching the rug. It'll just make everything feel grounded and like it's its own separate space. Brewer Sweet Co. is our interior design business. Garrett and I have both always been interested in interior design. And when we moved in together just before COVID hit, we designed our place, got a lot of positive feedback from it. We were both at a bit of a juncture where we were considering what we wanted to do for work long term. And I especially was looking to spread my wings, start my own business. So Garrett and I started the business together. We were both working just nights and weekends to start for the first couple years, really maximizing our time, slowly building our client list. We were also able to find a mentor who really kind of helped accelerate our business. Her name is Stephanie Hunt. The Flair Hunter is her brand. And she took us under her wing to really, mentor what it takes to be a successful interior designer, how to deal with build projects. Right now, our current docket is mostly remodels of about the size of 2,500 square feet or more. And we are working on a few ground up builds and starting more ground up builds in the future. So we take on projects anywhere from styling and refurnishing a home and decorating, adding drapery, all the way to full ground up build from conception, all the way to finalization and install. Our biggest markets right now have been Southern California. This is where the majority of our work is, but about 45% of our work right now is actually in Park City, Utah, interestingly enough. So we split our time between both locations pretty frequently.
So balancing my full-time job with Brewer Sweet Co. can be a little bit full on. Sometimes as Brewer Sweet Co.'s gotten bigger, I've been able to do more back-end stuff, which I do at my day job a lot. So there is a lot of overlap in like the day-to-day operations of the medical device industry and also running Excel sheets and invoicing and all the back-end data that people don't really see with Brewer Sweet Co. So we were able to find a good balance. Obviously, sometimes it's a little bit hectic, but it's growing pains and that just kind of comes with the territory. And we knew that getting into it, and I know that going into it. So it's been good. Trial and error. Okay, and that's it for our family room. And so now we'll go on to the kitchen.
This is our dining room area that's off the kitchen. We found these chairs once again on Facebook Marketplace, thanks to Garrett. These are from a consignment and European antique resale store that we really love, and they had posted them and we went and picked them up, which works super well with our table. This is another one of Garrett's Amerigo Supply ceramic pieces.
This is from college. It's like one of the OGs, one of the first ceramic pieces I ever did.
Totally. We get
one of my favorites.
Yeah, we get so many compliments on this space, and occasionally we'll sell pieces of Garrett's to clients, but this one is not for sale.
No.
I really love it. This light fixture is actually an IKEA light fixture. They will oftentimes partner with different artists or creators. They partnered with a Swedish
lighting designer
to create this line. And it was something that while we were renovating our house, we were messaging back and forth like, oh my gosh, did you just see this lighting line that was created? We have to be first in line. So we set a reminder, went online at 9 a.m. the day that it was dropped, and it sold out in 2 hours. So I'm so glad that we were able to get our hands on it because it looks really special and architectural and definitely continues that same kind of arch motif that you'll see a lot throughout our home. Moving into the kitchen, these are some really fun bar chairs that we found from Sun at 6. That you know, it's funny, as you're an interior designer, you sometimes make decisions that you're like, was that a little bit too out there? And when I first saw these chairs, I thought they were a little out there, but now that they're in our kitchen,
they're great.
They're great, and they feel so at home, and they're very comfortable.
So back here is so we actually installed this slider over here, was not here when we first started construction. And so we installed it. And so we did these sheer curtains all the way to the ceiling to try to make the ceiling feel a little bit taller. And it's very dreamy. I love it. And when you have the windows open and the wind's blowing through the back, it's just the best feeling ever. And so I love it. And it's just a cool little statement piece, and it looks cool when they're all kind of shoved into the corner. So yeah, we really like our shears.
Yeah, I love that. I love how sheer curtains pick up the light as well, so that, you know, it can create that kind of dreamy feel, as Garrett was mentioning, but they'll really reflect all of the light that's happening outside to make a really diffused effect. Moving into our kitchen, beforehand, this kitchen was a bit shorter. It came up to about here, but there was still a peninsula on this side.
Relatively the exact same layout.
Relatively the same layout. There were some uppers on this side, which really closed off the kitchen, so we removed those. We love open shelves on this side, just so that it makes the kitchen feel more open, especially trying to figure out a way to maximize the size of the space. Neither of us are a huge fan of can lights. They are oftentimes a necessary evil, because sometimes you do need to turn on the big light. But in our kitchen, we decided that instead of doing can lights, we would do surface mount lights. We found these beautiful handmade lights from Shop Amber Interiors, and they've patinaed in a really beautiful way. So we love just having those as a bit more jewelry to bring your eye up in this space. And we didn't have enough ceiling height to hang pendants anywhere. So this is a way to get around that and still have some nice lighting. This oven hood is another one that we did ourselves when we did the fireplace. We wanted it to feel like it fit the overall theme. And I just love how big and open this space feels, which leads us into the butler's pantry. This was our washing and drying machines before, a little laundry area. And there was actually a door going from our bathroom into the outside. So we were able to close up the door to the bathroom, closed the door to the outside, made this into a nice little butler's pantry. And since we do not have a built-in refrigerator, we decided to just hide it in the butler's pantry. And we're able to kind of tuck away like our coffee machine and some of our other appliances behind there as well, which just keeps a nice clean feel.
So for our cabinet color, it's actually more of a sand color. When we were deciding, we were choosing between, well, flat front and a shaker, but we knew we wanted shaker because it's a little bit more traditional. We didn't want to go too modern. And then they offered us a normal gray, a white, or this pretty sand color. And we just thought it was a beautiful taupey. It's a little bit different. It's not too far out there. And it's, again, really warm. We also splurged for some bigger handles just because we like the pull of them, the feel of them. And I think it just kind of adds to the whole vibe of the kitchen.
Yeah. Nice hardware makes such a difference.
Yes, hardware is everything.
Yes. And the countertops, we wanted, once again, we kind of wanted to read that line between something that was a little bit cooler and a little bit warmer. We love a warm undertone in the designs that we do. This is actually a Calcutta Maggio Duo countertop. So it has cool and warm veining throughout, but it keeps it very neutral. Since this is not a big space, we didn't want to do something too flashy. We really wanted to keep that open feel. Sometimes when we're working with clients in a bigger space, we'll put stone that's a little bit more dramatic, but this we wanted to feel very quiet. We wanted it to feel very calm. And that's why we ultimately went with this countertop that also became the backsplash, going all the way up, so that you don't have a lot of different elements competing with each other. But that also left room for this beautiful checkerboard, white and black marble flooring that was very important to us. So you'll see it in a few of the different areas. We did use a luxury vinyl plank flooring for our floors, just due to the style of the home, the size of the home, also our budget when we were remodeling. We decided against going with a real wood flooring. We also have dogs and a big backyard. So we wanted to find something that would be pretty bulletproof when dogs were running in and out, if we ever needed to clean it and mop it. This also saved us a lot of money in our overall budget so that we could spend a bit more money towards things like hard surfaces, tile, that sort of thing. And it's turned out to be a really great product that has been bulletproof. We also went with a wide plank because that makes it a little bit more of an updated feel. We love that kind of Scandinavian, Swedish, Norwegian style where they use a nice wide wood plank flooring to make it feel like it has a historical and classic element to it as well. So I would describe our overall design style as California coastal and desert inspired. We love a warm neutral base with pops of jewelry box elements throughout. So we love the bright contrast of strong colors, really interesting powder bathrooms, throw pillows, other art and accessories throughout that really bring out the life in a home. We also really love a transitional French country style peppered in with antique wood elements, found pieces of furniture, things that are historical and have a lot of meaning and special significance to not only ourselves, but to clients.
I'd say that nails it. Also, we like our homes to be cozy to a home that you can come and put your feet up on the couch and not feel like you're gonna get screamed at for it. My favorite space, probably this room, our like family room, I guess you would call it. I think it's cozy, I think it's small, it's the perfect size for us. It's great afternoon sunlight. I love our fireplace. I don't know, I think it's also the perfect example of who we are as people and our interior design style.
My favorite part in our home would probably be our kitchen. I do all of the cooking in our home in terms of our split of responsibilities, and I love our kitchen. We were able to expand it when we remodeled. I'm so glad that we did not turn our home into an open concept, which we had considered in one of the renovation iterations. And it's so nice to have kind of a slightly closed off space where if we're entertaining, we can keep the dishes on the counter, but it also gives me ample room to work with. And I love that we were able to transition what was the laundry area off the kitchen into a nice butler's pantry with some really fun checkerboard marble flooring. And it just makes me really happy that we can hide some of our appliances back there, keep them off the counters, and it's just a really usable space. All right, that's it for the kitchen. Let's keep going through the house. All right, transitioning into our hallway.
So right here, again, we don't like the big lights. So we instead, House Up had these cool, kind of funky surface mounts. And so we're like, let's just install those. Why not do those? Yep. And so we just think they're kind of fun and funky. And then nope, okay. And then right here is our guest bathroom. So the old door used to be right here into the laundry room, which we removed and we brought everything this way. We did a wainscot all the way up, halfway up the wall. So the next person that comes in to buy the house, if they have kids, it's a little more stupid proof. It's a little more waterproof. And it also just adds a kind of a cool element. And we did a black grout because it's easier to clean. And with a penny tile floor, no one wants to clean white grout penny tile. Mm-hmm. And this is our bathroom.
Yeah, plus it makes it just feel a little bit more elevated using that contrasting grout instead of just a standard subway that you might see in a regular space. Here's our home office. This is where a lot of our core design work happens. We each have our own desks here. This is kind of our HQ. We also love a gallery wall moment. So this is a great way for us to be able to feature art that we've collected over time, things that matter to us. This is an antique bartender's guide poster that a friend of ours got for us, art that we've acquired from different areas, a little illustration of Garrett and I that I got Garrett for one of our first Valentine's Days. A few spots. Paris is really important to the both of us. We go to Design Week in Paris every year and we spend a lot of time there together. These are some posters that we got on the streets of Paris. Some leaves that Garrett brought back from Park City, Utah, which is another place.
Collected them on a hike.
Yeah, that's really important to us.
This is a picture of my friend painted of when we got engaged. This was the view at the Airbnb. Mm-hmm. So again, we try to make sure our art ties into who we are as people and is a reflection of who we are and is important to us.
Yeah. And then, view out to the front. And also our sample library lives in this space until we have a full-time office for us and our staff to exist in. This is the beauty of a home interior designer store where we have all of our fabric, tile samples, that kind of thing. It's starting to grow outside of the space that we have. But we also, when we started our office, we had about 2 levels of samples, and then the rest was all of Garrett's ceramics. Poor Garrett is getting forced to the garage because we only have about 1.5 shelves left, but it's a good way to display some of the things that he's made.
Okay, so this is my ceramic display, as Jonathan calls it. So this was, for one of my first college projects, I had to do my initials. And so I did this. And then when I picked up ceramics again after college and Jonathan and I were dating, I was like, well, he needs initials. So then I gave him his initials of John. He was at the time Jonathan Sweet. And so now we're Jonathan and Garrett Brewer Sweet. And that's how it kind of ties together. And these are all just my ceramic pieces. This is a little bit of gray and white clay together. You like mash it together and then throw it, which is kind of cool. And just a lot of cool pieces. I was going for like an ice cream situation, as if it was like melting ice cream coming off the side of it. And yeah, these are just all this is a little incense holder for Palo Santo. I have a special place in my heart for ceramics. My biggest go-to home design tip is lighting is the jewelry of the house. Do a lot of research in lighting, find cool lighting. I just think people will find one sconce or whatever and they'll do it everywhere. And to me, it looks really repetitive. And so I think it's important to show cool lighting and just, that's really important to me, I guess you could say.
It's a great one. My go-to home design tip is to make sure you are checking your paint colors in all lights before you commit to painting your walls. So many times we only paint a little sample area in one place or the other. We love to use a company called Samplize, and they will send you 12 by 12 sticky sheets of almost any paint color out there. And we will always tell clients choose at least 3 paint colors, which we are typically providing. Stick the samples up on your walls and move them throughout the day, because a warm white can look very cool depending on what the color temperature of your light bulbs is. So you might want to go a slightly warmer paint color, or it could change in the sunlight. Sometimes paints really change depending on what lights or shadows are hitting them. So I would encourage you to always take your paint colors throughout the house before you commit. Now let's transition to the rest of the house. First of all, this is our drama hallway, as we like to call it. When we bought this house, it was a 3-bedroom, but there was no access to the garage. So we took it down to a 2-bedroom so that we could make our bedroom and bathroom bigger. And we also added this direct access because we moved the laundry to the garage. Garrett is our laundry master. Didn't want him to have to go outside through our roll-up garage door to access the machines. When we were in Detroit, Michigan, a friend of ours named Sarah Bacon, who runs the account Opulist, which is a way to find aesthetic places near you, she had told us to go to the Siren Hotel. There's a bar there called the Candy Bar that she really loved. They had this dramatic hallway leading from the bar area into their restrooms. And we thought, what a great way to make a space that's typically just transitional into something that's a design element. So they had a black and white checkerboard flooring that we found so inspirational. So we added that here. They used a really dark wall color to paint wash the entire space. And then they had sconces along the wall periodically. So we took some of the motifs that they had been inspired by and added them to our space. I'm really glad that we added cages around these lights, because we hit these all the time coming through our hallway. And it wasn't something we thought about when doing such a high circulation area, but it's definitely something that's been a good element as we've lived in the home.
Yeah. Okay, and on to the bedroom right over here.
Welcome to our bedroom. This is a space that we put a lot of love and attention to detail into. First of all, we love our canopy bed. This is by one of our favorite designers, Leanne Ford, in her collaboration with Crate and Barrel. We've had this for a long time. It's moved with us a couple times. And in this space, we wanted to keep it very calming and have emulating kind of a spa feel. I was feeling very inspired to paint our ceiling with stripes. Garrett, it took a little bit of convincing. When
I was a very supportive husband and just went along with it.
Yeah, he went along with it. He trusted my vision, and we loved the way that it turned out. We were actually having our house shot to be featured in AD, and it was the night before our shoot. We had rushed home from a family wedding, and we stayed up until 2 a.m. painting the ceiling because I was so adamant that we had to have the ceiling for our photo shoot. And they ended up not even using a photo of our bedroom in this bed. But now it's done, which is great. Yep. We are really into simple bedding these days. A lot of folks are very passionate about their bedding and love a lot of pillows, something more traditional, but we love something really simplistic. And Garrett actually found this bed cover.
Yes, it's from Cultivar, and it's just great for like, easy to make the bed. What's underneath can hang off the side and no one sees it. I love it. Yeah. It's great.
Mm-hmm. And then other art that we've acquired from different antique stores, things that are meaningful to us, places that we love. This is our dog Macaroni. A friend of ours had this made for us a few years ago for Christmas. It's just really nice to have a few pieces around.
Yeah, almost all of this is bought antiqued or second. I mean, basically antiqued.
Yeah.
We're really big on antiquing, if you can't tell.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we love new art as well, but anything that we can find that has some sort of significance and will allow us to reuse a piece that's already out in the world. I think it's really great for sustainability. It's also just really interesting to have pieces that have cultural or historical significance in your home as well. And moving over here, tried to create a fun space underneath our TV. Obviously, we don't love black TVs, so we really enjoy using frame TVs when at all possible if you can't hide a TV.
And that's it for the bedroom.
Yes.
And now we'll go into the bathroom.
All right, moving into our bathroom. Once again, really wanting to bring in kind of that spa, relaxing feel in our bathroom. This was actually the primary bedroom when we first moved into this house.
Yep.
We obviously moved this wall, but we reconfigured this space so that we could have a bigger closet, have a bigger bathroom. Before it was just a postage stamp with like a toilet, pedestal sink, and a tiny little stand-up shower. So it was great being able to make a double vanity for the both of us to use. Love this tile that we use in the bathroom with a larger penny tile on the bottom that is just a little bit different than you would typically see. And the mixes of blues and neutral tones, tans, taupe colors, just makes me really happy.
And we decided to tile the ceiling just for a little bit of extra oomph, you know, just because, why not?
Yeah. And then these pieces over here, Garrett, why don't you talk about those pieces?
This is from an Instagram account called Vintage Barbie and Ken. And so these are all shot in real time. And like, so this is actually at the beach and like, this is people swimming out there. It's really cool. And again, it's like Jonathan and I. It's just a fun little piece that we enjoy and has a little bit of character to it.
Yeah, definitely. The artist is really interesting. He uses forced perspective to create these moments that feel like they are Barbies or Kens living in real life.
This up here, another vintage light we sourced from the well in Summerlin. We just liked it because it added a little bit of character to the bathroom, which is really important to us.
Yeah, I love that it's not perfect. It's an old enamel light and you can see it has like some chips and dings in it. It just speaks to the historical context that this light's been around for a while. We love that mix of old and new so that when you're walking in a space, it doesn't feel totally sterile or like it's just come out of a box. We love there to be elements that are a mix to create that kind of historical factor that something might have been there forever, it might not have been. This rug is a rug that actually when we were in Santa Barbara for a friend's wedding, there were a few hours between the wedding and the reception. So we were walking down State Street. There was this big fair going on and we couldn't stop looking at these beautiful antique Persian rugs that someone was selling. And we stopped, we decided to purchase it. We weren't even sure
where it was going to go
at that time since we were still under construction. And we walked to lunch with this rug rolled up in our suits with all of our friends in their formal wear and had it with us. And then we stashed it before the reception and we were able to bring it home. And it's been the perfect addition to our bathroom. To me, home means a space where you feel the most comfortable and like you can be absolutely yourself. We always say when we're working with clients that we really want the home to help bring out part of the soul of the person we're designing for or the family. I think it's really important that a home reflects your interests, your personality, but also the way that you want to exist in the world and the type of spaces that really bring you a lot of joy and that you want to be interacting with the most. It should be a space where you feel safe, where you feel inspired, and where you ultimately feel at your most comfortable.
I'm going to piggyback off of that and say, like, right off the bat, a home is a place where you feel comfortable, a place where you feel as a reflection of who you are as a person, and is not like the last thing you want to do is go into a home that feels sterile. I think it's really important that a house reflects who you are. And so to me, that's what a home is. And also the people you surround yourself in your home, you know what I mean? Your family. And so it all collectively comes together to make a home, in my opinion.
All right, Homeworthy, that's all the time we have for today. It's time to get back to our design work that's waiting for us, but we really appreciate you taking the time to look through our home.
Thank you.
See you later.
Bye.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to go to homeworthy.com for exclusive content, shopping guides, and so much more.